important to always chew your food.
Hello, and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Cameron Reigle.
And we're recording this episode on December 5th. And Cameron, it was 30 years ago this very night that I first read what we are actually going to discuss. And, normally I don't like to say when we're recording this because I like to give people the illusion that this show is live and that we exist in some sort of disembodied state within their own skulls, just doing this on demand whenever they play a button. But, occasionally I have to forego that fiction. And to be honest with people, we do record these ahead of time, generally speaking. And yeah, I didn't really plan this. I didn't do the math ahead of time and say, oh yeah, we're going to be recording this the night of the actual 30th anniversary for when Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest, was more or less released in the Americas. Because back then there were general release dates, but it was basically whenever stores got stock in, they would sell them. There was no strict on sale policy in place for a few more years, so
you really didn't have to worry about stuff leaking on the internet early.
Right. You couldn't just pirate a game early on the very rudimentary mid-1990s internet. Maybe you could. I don't know. I don't know these things. I was ignorant, but still am actually. But yeah, December 4th is the earliest date we have on record. For me, all the stores got them in on December 5th, and that's when I got Donkey Kong Country 2. And I spent much of that night poring over the 30-some odd pages of this booklet because I was going to play the game the next day with my friend Elliot, who we did 2-player teams with. That's how we played the Donkey Kong Country trilogy. And so, it's kind of this agreement I had with him. I was like, okay, I will at the very least try out the first level when I get the game, but then I will bring it over in the morning and we'll play it before school. As I said on the last episode I did with Dustin, there's a 2-hour delay because of snow the next day. So we got even longer with our initial start of the actual adventure. But the night before, to get my kicks, to really indulge in DKC2, I pretty much just spent hours looking through what might very well be my favorite instruction manual of all time. And, I mean, to be fair, they stopped making instruction manuals, so it's not like that's a bar that can be cleared in the modern day. It's not like, Bonanza came close to dethroning DKC2 for me as far as being my favorite game of all time. Didn't quite do it just because of the nostalgia factor and because I consider DKC2 just to be the epitome of the perfect 2D platformer. But DKC2's pack-in, the instruction booklet, I think that is probably still my favorite. And it took what the original game's instruction book did, and I think it elevated it into something of an art form. And I know it's a bit weird to do a whole podcast about an instruction book, and we already did it once. We did it last year for Donkey Kong Country, but we're doing it again as part of our 30th anniversary celebrations for DKC2. We will go through the entirety of the instruction booklet, the English version of it at least, and tell ya what makes it so great, what makes it so memorable, and why it is an essential piece of literature for any Donkey Kong diehard. Cameron, when's the last time you read this book?
Gosh, I don't know when the last time I read it was. I can tell you that as a child, I was all over this instruction booklet. I so wish I had a picture of my original manual. I still have it. It's back with my parents. But well loved is the condition of that manual. It is basically the way that things like Tales from the Sea of Thieves try to look weathered is how that just looks now.
Sure.
But yeah, it's an interesting perspective to come at from me. I was kind of a manual fiend back in the day. Like, if a game had a manual, I wouldn't insist on reading it like front to back if I had access to it, because I think I've explained on this show before is back in the mid 90s, I would get a lot of my video games used, and given that Nintendo's game packaging back then tended to be cardboard, a lot of the time when you got a game secondhand, it didn't come with a manual because there was just nowhere to put it. So the few games that I was able to get new or in like a good enough condition that they were still boxed, I would like treasure being able to read them cover to cover and make sure I understood what was going on. And I think a lot of that came from this experience I had with the very first video game I ever really owned and played. I was given a Super Nintendo for my birthday in 1996. I apologize that this is going into a big story.
That's all this podcast is, Cameron. What are we doing here if not just sharing big rambling stories from the last 30 years?
Yeah, so I was given a Super Nintendo for my birthday, and it came with two games. One was Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World. It was specifically that bundle that came with that cartridge. And the other was Scooby-Doo Mystery by Argonaut. And being a dumb kid who didn't even notice Mario was bundled in with the console, I tried Scooby-Doo first. And it was a used copy, and a very short time into playing it, I had pressed the L button, which activates the game's map screen, and which is a still image of Fred Jones from Scooby-Doo holding like a physical map in front of your face and smiling. But I'm a dumb kid. I've never owned a video game console before. I don't know what I pressed to bring this screen up, and I cannot figure out how to get it off my screen. I go to my mom and how I don't know what to do. Fred is just stuck on my screen. So from then on out, I'm like, I want to know what I'm doing in a video game before I play it so I don't mess things up.
Right.
So that kind of started my history of any time a game came with a manual, I would just pour over it before I... generally before I even touch the game.
Mm-hmm.
Which, in DKC2's case, turned out to be kind of interesting. One, because this manual is phenomenal. DKC2 was one of the earliest Super Nintendo games I had, and this manual kind of sets high expectations of what you expect every other manual to be like.
Unfortunately.
But
yeah.
also, the ironic thing is, I feel like even though DKC2 might have the best manual of the Donkey Kong series, at least of the Country trilogy, it's the one that least needs a manual, I think. It's a very effective game at... Not only very effective at communicating its mechanics to you and its story, certainly more than DKC3. I've gotten into that before.
Mm-hmm.
But Wrinkly Kong exists as
Right.
an in-game reference for anything you need to know. So this really is an indulgence in flavor for the exact kind of people who eat this up, and I was one of them.
Same. And I've said before, when we discussed the Donkey Kong Country manual, and the many times I've discussed my history falling in love with Donkey Kong Country, it was the manual. It was reading the manual of the original Donkey Kong Country on the car ride home from Blockbuster Video, because I'm old. It was what made me just instantly, get in the same wavelength as the game and realize that this game was actually talking to me. Like, this was what I'd been looking for. Just the sheer fact that Cranky Kong was in the instruction manual as kind of this insult comic. It was just this mind-bending thing where I was like, where have you been my entire brief life?
This is maybe, aside from really until Bonanza, probably the most on fire Cranky has ever been is in this manual.
I say it's between this and the Donkey Kong 64 manual. And
oh yeah, the Donkey Kong 64 manual, that's a good one, because that one's just entirely narrated by him.
Yeah, that is kind of taking the flavor of the first two Donkey Kong Country books and just upping it to the point where it could never be done again, at least to that extent. I know Returns kind of did it just to do it, but it was never really the same, and Cranky was not nearly as harsh. Cranky's a bastard in this, and we're gonna get into it. This is this is some shit that he spews in this book, and I guess in DKC too as well. But
I never thought about this until this moment, but I know that infamously, Earthbound, when it was released on the Super Nintendo, didn't do well, and I know a lot of blame is attributed partially to the fact that it had a very self-deprecating marketing campaign, based around the phrase "this game stinks," because it came with a scratch and sniff card.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of wonder where that and this fall on the timeline with each other, because I would think after this was, but both were 95 releases. Earthbound happened much earlier, but I do kind of wonder, post Earthbound's not quite going over as they expected, would they be more reticent to be as openly self-deprecating about a game? But though I guess in this particular case, well, they can be as self-deprecating as they want, because you've already bought it if you're reading this.
There's that, and there's also just Donkey Kong Country was such a runaway success the following year that I don't think there were really any restraints in place for this. It's just do what you want. And
nobody's going to take Cranky seriously.
Yeah. This was also Nintendo of America, as well, responsible for the voice of Cranky here. So it could have had an effect going forward, like DKC 3. They really toned that down, but then it's right back in full force in Donkey Kong 64. So, I don't think, if Earthbound did have an effect on it, it was very brief, and then they just decided to go whole hog again. But yeah, we'll get into all of it as we discuss the Donkey Kong Country 2 English language instruction manual on this episode of The Kongversation. But before we get into it, I want to say a brief thank you once again to our patrons. Thank you, patrons, for patronizing us. That's not the right word. Thank you for supporting DK Vine through this phenomenal year that the fandom has had. If you like Donkey Kong, there's a good chance that as far as this hobby goes, 2025's been a kind of a good year. And I know, I always say, you can't really say that about much in 2025. But Donkey Kong fans, wow. It's the end of the road, a long road we've been on to get here. But now we are just seeing the full effect of the Donkey Kong series being prominent again and being treated like its own brilliant thing once again. I'm writing an article about it right now for DK Vine, and should be up around or shortly after this episode goes live. But I just really feel like the long like period of time between Tropical Freeze's release in 2014 and Bonanza's release this last July, never felt like we were going to leave that tunnel, right? We always saw light in the distance, but we just kept going and we kept persevering and we kept finding ways to keep DK Vine and this podcast, The Kongversation, keep it going, to keep it fresh, to keep it lively. And then we hit this season and all of a sudden we just had so much to talk about. But it was our patrons who really kept that ship afloat. So I want to say thank you. And as always, we will be sending out a holiday card to every single DK Vine patron at the $1 and up tiers. And it's always a lot of work for us, for you and Dustin, compiling the artwork, crafting these, and then me rush ordering them and shipping them out, hand signing each one. Oh boy. I ordered the stamps today, Cameron. I ordered the stamps, so they should be here next week. Had to order well over 100. So yeah, that's fun. Yeah. My hand's already cramping up in anticipation for it, but yeah, if you would like one of these holiday cards, become a DK Vine patron and make sure your address, your physical shipping address is included, and I will get it out to you. So yeah, want to say hello to our live stream chatters, our $5 and up patrons who have joined us on this splendid evening. Yes, Monaco14 is there, March Rose is there, DK Buzzard is there, and Chocolate Milk Drinker is there. March Rose says, hype for the holiday cards. They are always so good. Super excited for this year's. I think we hit upon a fun idea for this year. It's timely. It's appropriate. It's a shame because we always have like a wealth of ideas for holiday cards. And then this year, obviously Donkey Kong Bonanza came out. And it's like, well, all those ideas we had in the cache, in storage, we'll just have to wait for another year because we have to do a Bonanza related card. And that's what we're doing, of course. But last year's was fun. The erotic naughty. I'm glad we got that one out before we had to shift gears into relevance, into what's actually happening in the fandom, in the community. But yeah. You can always look at these old holiday cards, by the way, digitally on dkvine.com. They're all under the features tab, going all the way back to even before we mailed them out, going back to 2013 is the first year we actually did this properly. And yeah, it's a fun tradition. Happy to keep it going. All right, Cameron. The Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Kong Quest English Language Manual. It's once again the handiwork of Dan Owsen of Nintendo of America. And Dan Owsen, oh my god, really in top form for this one. When we were discussing the hype and the promotion and the booklet for the original Donkey Kong Country last year on the podcast, I did say that Owsen sometimes felt like he didn't have a firm grasp on the world of Donkey Kong Country. For example, I singled out his penchant for always calling Donkey or DK simply Kong. Like he was really trying to get that one going. Oh yeah, Kong. And, it's more or less apparent that all of that could be chalked up to they're just not really being much established yet. And he hadn't internalized what Greg Mayles and the creative team at Rare were actually doing with all of this. And picking this one up again, picking up the DKC2 manual, it's clear that after it had been just cooking within Dan Owsen's brain for a year, he completely gets it now because he rarely misses a beat with this booklet. It is spectacular.
There is a definite, synergy between the contents of this manual and the contents of the game, and In this era, I mean, they were getting better about it, but you didn't always see that happen with video games. Sometimes you just have a complete, like, stylistic or even story disconnect between the manual and the game. But like back in these days, I had no idea who did what. I would have just assumed, yeah, the same people who made the game made the manual cover to cover.
I only knew this because I really started paying attention to the credits of Donkey Kong Country 2 in particular, and you just really wanted to know, like, who made what. And by this point, you know, I was familiar enough to know what Rare was, and that Rare was basically behind this. But then in the credits, it does say manual by Owsen, I believe. But, you know, you can put it together by looking at other games, who that is. Now, I always associate or conflate this instruction manual with Leigh Loveday, and that's simply because Leigh's earliest credit at Rare was Donkey Kong Country 2, and it was for the story. And so I think somewhere in my mind, I tend to think that this whole manual is Leigh's doing, because Leigh would eventually take over instruction manuals for a time. And it didn't happen yet, but like Leigh's writing is so distinct. And I think, as you said, like this is very harmonized with what Rare was doing. And it does have the kind of flavor that we would come to associate with Leigh Loveday.
Yeah, they feel very cut from the same cloth, this manual and the writing I'd come to expect from Leigh Loveday, and by that I mean they are both ruthlessly biting.
Yes. And I think, you know, the cult of Leigh Loveday in the Rare fandom really started with the launch of Rareware, the website, in 1998. And so it kind of has this ripple effect backwards in time, and you just start attributing everything to Leigh. This kind of Hemingway of cartoony video games starring googly-eyed animals. But in truth, Dan Owsen was responsible for a lot of this. I think that, you know, Greg Mayles actually did a lot of the writing in DKC2 itself. Like, I think a lot of the character dialogue was actually Greg. Greg is very funny. You just don't realize it because he's so even-keeled and quiet. And
it's part of the treat of him posting all of this like developmental material to social media in over the last like decade or so is seeing him be funny in the margins of this like professional tool he's crafted.
Or his post-it notes, like his.
Like I think, oh shit bags! I stepped in treacle. Said by Donkey Kong is stuck in my head.
Wasn't that Squitter? Or it was somebody. Like I remember there was a Squitter one that was very, very funny. Posh Squitter. But, just like Greg is kind of like cut from this same cloth as Loveday and Owsen. And so like for whatever reason, this manual just not only syncs up with what the game itself was doing, which was a lot of Greg Mayles, but the writing we would come to associate with Leigh Loveday. And I don't know if the story for DKC2, which is attributed to Loveday, if that is actually written by him in this manual, or if Owsen like took Loveday's story and then rewrote it under his own words. We don't have like a clear picture of how this came about.
And I don't know if it speaks to it either way, that a lot of the wording from this is just repurposed in the GBA version.
Yes. The Game Boy Advance remake of Donkey Kong Country 2 would take the story and actually play it out in a scene in a game for the very first time, similar to what Donkey Kong Country's remake the previous year, 2003 did. So, like, they do change a few things. They do kind of tighten it up a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, this is really, like, set in stone early on. Like, this is how the story happened. They do add little tweaks, like the flying croc actually coming above the Congo beach, and, you know, the Kremlin's coming down on ropes to grab Donkey Kong. But yeah, I mean, this is the story that Loveday at the very least crafted. Whether or not Owsen punched it up, don't know. So you open up the instruction book, and right away, bam, there's Cranky Kong on the very first page, underneath the like the caution and the like ESRB rating explanation. And if you want more information about the ESRB and the appropriateness of the rating, please contact, 1-800-771-3772. No idea if that number is still in service, but call it up and ask about Donkey Kong Country 2's rating, if it really was appropriate to be, at the time, kids to adults, ages 6+. It's been amended to be everyone nowadays. But there's Cranky Kong in the first pop-up insert in DKC2's instruction manual. They waste no time here. And all of these are done through these renders that I think were created specifically for the manual. There are several that were made, like one big sheet of renders of Cranky and the Starburst pattern doing all of these like exasperated expressions.
They almost seem like the peelable stickers like an elementary school teacher would like stick on your homework to say good job, except Cranky would be telling you did an awful job and you should try again.
It reminds me of like a mid-60s album from like a lounge singer or something. Like just all of these expressions like in a row, and you put them all up, and it's just like I don't know. It reminds me of something like that. But yeah, I mean, I love these, and I love that like they took what worked in the Donkey Kong Country manual and they just kind of leaned into it even harder for this one. And it's funnier. It's even funnier here. So Cranky says, "I don't know how this got a seal of quality," referring to the official Nintendo seal of quality. "It seems any old trash can worm its way through these days." So yeah, right away, they're not letting up on the self-deprecating humor from the first instruction manual. And I was so happy to see this back. And of course, Cranky narrates the back of the NTSC box at the very least for the game. And yeah, it's one of the most enduring things. And that's why in Bonanza I was so happy he was actually like going at it again. Even in a DLC, he's just like, "I can't believe I have to appear in DLC," or whatever he said. And it's just like, oh my god, they're doing it again. It's great to see. But the next page, we get the table of contents. Is this the earliest instance of taking a word that starts with con and making it Kong? Because I owe everything to this, if that's the case.
Yeah, what do you think you're listening to?
Of course, it is a bit weird because you look down the list of this table of contents, and everything has a different title here than what the actual page says. And I think they did a search and replace with Seize the K's, doing a Mortal Kombat thing for both Kong and Kremlin, I guess, because you've got like things like cannonballs with a K, you've got cask with a K, but Crocodile Isle's the same, but then they miss Cranky Kong, and they spell Cranky Kong's final words on page 32 with a K.
Yeah, it seems like just some early weirdness of not quite having a handle on when is it okay to lean into this, when do we not? And honestly, it is a little weird that Crocodile Isle is spelled with a C, both like in the game itself and in everything.
Right. Yeah, it is. It is. And I think this is one of the few early inelegancies where things aren't quite syncing up, and maybe Owsen is taking some liberties here. It's like, oh yeah, it's the 90s. We got to have funky alternate spellings for everything. Thank goodness, it wasn't the late 90s, or else they'd be putting a Z for all the S's at the end of words.
This, it like to use another, like, slang at the risk of being dated. Like, this whole manual is a vibe to me, but it's not even specifically like, I don't even think it's specifically like, oh, this is very 90s. This just feels weirdly cozy to me for a manual that is like so sarcastic and self-deprecating.
Right. Yeah.
I want to call attention to the render on this table of contents, and just call attention to a few things. One thing right off the bat, because I can personally attest to this. So this render is Diddy and Dixie holding a giant banana amid a pile of bananas and treasure, with a DK2 logo behind them, and behind them in the distance, in deep, deep shadow, and offset even farther back from the, like, behind the table of contents text itself, is a looming, shadowy render of Captain K. Rool.
Yes.
Did you even notice he was here the first time, Hyle? Because I didn't, honestly. Maybe it was the dim lighting of any time I read this, but I didn't even clock he was looming back there until I had seen him in the game and seen what he looked like.
I did see him. Now, granted, I already knew what the render looked like because I'd seen it in magazines before this, so it wasn't a surprise, and we'll get into it a little bit later. Like, should this have even been in the instruction manual? But yeah, I did see him. I did notice it. The thing that really stuck out for me about this render is how weird it is that they, like, use this weird logo of just the DK abbreviation, like you'd see on the DK barrels, for instance, with a metallic 2 in front of it. And this isn't the only render Rare made for this game where they use some version of DK2. And I'm like, why are you trying to get that going? That's not what the game is called. This isn't Donkey Kong 2.
It kind of has the same vibe to me as the first DKC manual referring to Donkey Kong as Kong, where it's trying to establish a thing that will not be a thing.
Yeah.
In the nomenclature people refer to this game. It's pitching you something that's not going to stick.
Yeah, and I could see like why they would maybe want to communicate this visually in some sort of shorthand. But yeah.
And they have written themselves into a corner because unlike Retro's trilogy, or duology, they, like, the original Donkey Kong Country logo set the country lettering in a different lettering style than DK, so if you lined up the C here, it might look a little weird.
Yeah. It like I said, it's one of these weird occurrences that you see within this first year of the sort of modern Donkey Kong series, and you're like, what were they doing there? What was that about? Doesn't matter. Nobody's ever going to call this Donkey Kong 2.
And I'm never sure like when specifically these renders were made, other than that you can, the very rare times you see Diddy and Dixie without fur, it's a very early render. But
yes, and
these had to, the timeline for rendering stuff like this was so long that you don't know how far in advance a lot of this artwork was made before certain decisions were made.
At the very least, this was advanced enough where they had their fur and they were very comfortable using shadow. So
yeah, I do want to call attention to two other things that stand out to me about this render. One, in the pile of bananas they're sitting in, there are a bunch of not quite ripe green bananas.
Yeah.
Which, until Donkey Kong 64 made it a point that those were Chunky Kong's bananas, I feel like you very rarely saw that in Donkey Kong Country imagery. It's just an interesting thing to see here. I guess in-game partly because, well, you don't make a banana look different for gameplay reasons because you get the player asking questions, but also palette limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just easier if they're all yellow.
Right.
And the other thing I wanted to point out is, so we've talked about this a bit off air, Hyle, how inconsistently in this era, like Diddy and Dixie don't always have the respective Nintendo and Rare logos on their hats.
Right.
And going into this episode, like just half remembering this manual, I wanted to propose a game as we went through this episode, Hyle, of like, let's take note every time that they don't have the logos in these renders on the pages, only to realize when skimming through the manual before this episode, oh, none of the renders in this manual have the logos on their hats.
Yeah. I think the logos were like a very last minute thing, relatively speaking, and there are several renders that exist in both states of them having the logos or not having the logos, or only Diddy has the Nintendo logo and Dixie doesn't have the Rare pin on her beret.
Part of me wonders if a reason that we don't always see the logos, and in fact, like, different versions of the same render seem to exist both with and without the logos, is I wonder if it was a preventative measure for publication use like this, where if they wanted to flip the characters, it wouldn't cause an issue. Obviously, in this render, that wouldn't work because you have DK in the background. It's gonna be reversed if you flipped it.
Yeah.
But I feel like, aside from Dixie's hat leaning to one side, which not everybody's going to notice, like a lot of these renders are pretty symmetrical in a way you could flip them without it really being immediately obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And the Nintendo and Rare logos would immediately give that away.
Yeah.
But even with that theory, like, looking through this manual, no, Dixie's hat is consistently leaning the same way pretty, like, every time.
Yeah. It's odd. I don't have an explanation for it other than, like, it was just a late decision. But yeah, it's like, it's one of those things where even with the, like, GBA remakes, you would tend to see, like, these versions of renders that did clearly have the Nintendo and Rare logos on their clothing absent. And you're just like, oh, at the time we're like, oh, they've removed the Rare logo from Dixie's beret because of the buyout and whatever. But no, I think it was just always the case where they just existed simultaneously. So I don't know. It could even be they provided like a layered image for people and they just didn't turn the layer on. I would love to just break into Rare some night and just, like, find where they're storing their decades of art assets and just rifle through them, because God, there was just so much that was produced, and we'll talk a little bit about it in this episode. Stuff in the background of this player's guide that's never really been given a full official release, unobscured. And you're just like, I want to see this in all of its splendor. I want to see this in all of its glory.
There's so much, and it feels like they really are, especially in comparison to the DKC1 manual, where the backgrounds were a lot more like simple graphics. They're really taking advantage of the fact that, like, well, we had to model all of this stuff to put in the game.
Mm-hmm.
We might as well use it. We can reuse it. It's 3D. We can take it from all sorts of different angles, reframe things, like take characters out of a scene. It's all very smartly put together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one of the biggest laments I have about when the N64 era started and they just began working with polygons and they started doing less and less in the render department, and it just kind of like I look at like Banjo-Kazooie, and I know like Ed Bryan has shared some rendered scenes that have never been officially released there, and like they actually did more renders than we even knew about for Banjo-Kazooie. But then Donkey Kong 64, you know, the Kong helpers like Funky, Cranky, Candy never even got official renders for that game, and I
get it, because the less you lean on pre-rendered graphics, then you're having to effectively make two different versions of everything if you have a high-definition, like, NURBS model and also the in-game asset.
Yeah, but something like this spoiled me, because I just expected it, because they had so much, and you'd always see it in the instruction manual or in the player's guides or in just assets they would provide in magazines, and you would just be transfixed by it, and it would become like part of the like a language between you and the studio, and just like every new game you would be like, ooh, here's more art for me to stare at on long car trips. And yeah,
it was an incentive to get the player's guides and read the manuals, because you might just see a cool picture of a character you hadn't seen before.
Of course, another reason I read the manuals was for the story and the world building. And that is why, like, I always made it a mission before I played any game. If there was a manual to read, I would try to read that manual. And then it became sort of a religion for me, starting with Donkey Kong Country. And yeah, this story, which is, you know, a very, very basic story. K. Rool kidnaps Donkey Kong. Oh no, what to do? It's still very engaging when you are a kid, so excited about this game. And the story itself is called Trouble in Paradise, which of course would eventually become the subtitle of a DKU game from Rare, about a decade plus down the line. But yeah, at the time, it was like, I think it's so much better written than the Donkey Kong Country story. It was a dark and stormy night.
The phrase that Snoopy types to demonstrate that he's a hack writer.
Yes. But in this case, they've had a year to sit with a lot of these characters. They are so much better realized here. Whether or not Leigh Loveday actually wrote the prose here or not, this feels authentically like all the characters as we know them, even to this day. And so I would like to read this verbatim. We're not going to read everything in this manual verbatim. Do not worry, people. But this is, I think...
This might deserve it.
Yes. This is worth it. So I don't know if we want to do all the character voices. I don't know how we want to do that. We'll just play it by ear as we go. I'll be the narrator at the very least. I'll be the omniscient word of log here. All right. So Donkey Kong gulped down the last of his banana milkshake and sighed happily, his old beach chair creaking as he wriggled his toes in the sand. This is the life, he thought to himself. The sun beating down on a clear blue sea, and no pesky banana-thieving Kremlings to worry about. Lazily, he raised a hand to wave at Funky, who was showing off his surfing expertise out on the waves with the squawking seagulls. And this is really just completely brought to life in the GBA remake. Like I said, there were variances there, but everything from Donkey Kong drinking a banana milkshake in an old beach chair and Funky surfing, that's all in the GBA remake.
I hadn't noticed until now that there's a typo in the very first line. Donkey Kong doesn't have a space in it.
Donkey Kong, yeah. And I like, they might have changed this in some of the later reprintings or reissues. They might have corrected some of these typos. The one we're looking at, though, yeah, Donkey Kong is just, they missed a space in Donkey Kong. Well, what are you going to do? Everything else is so perfect. They have to
this is
find
not
room.
roasting this manual, believe me.
Donkey Kong settled back and closed his eyes, thinking he'd have a little doze, when he heard the sound of shuffling feet. Before he knew what was happening, Cranky Kong bopped him on the head with his cane. "Youch!" he exclaimed, glaring at the snickering old ape standing in front of him. I'll be Cranky. Well, said Cranky. What do you think you're doing, sitting around all day? They won't get much of a game out of this, will they? I thought you were supposed to be a big star. Even stars get time off, muttered Donkey Kong, rubbing his head. I never did, said Cranky proudly. Whisking off maidens and throwing barrels around the place 7 days a week, I was. That's how I got where I am today, you know. Hard work. None of this lazing around on the beach. Why don't you go off and pester Diddy or something, complained Donkey Kong. Let me have a bit of peace for once. Cranky snorted. Ha! He's off somewhere with that girlfriend of his. But still, I can see when I'm not wanted. Grumbling to himself, Cranky shambled off down the beach, leaving Donkey Kong to pull his hat over his eyes, sink down into his beach chair, and slowly drift to sleep. Well, they retconned out the hat with the GBA remake.
I want to know what Donkey Kong's hat looked like.
Right?
Does he have was it like a bucket hat? Was it like a visor? Like a straw sun hat? What's he got?
I would probably imagine a bucket hat. I don't think the big straw hat would really suit Donkey Kong's whole aesthetic. But yeah, it is odd.
No, that's more Redneck Kong's thing.
It's Redneck Kong, yeah. It's odd that Donkey Kong would have a hat.
It's dangerous for Donkey Kong to wear any hats because he just looks like a different character.
I know, right? You put on sunglasses, oops, there's Funky. But yeah, again, the hat's not really canon. A lot of this, when it was adapted, was simplified. So at least they modeled a new model of Donkey Kong sitting in a beach chair, so that bit was preserved. Anyway, when night fell and their big buddy still hadn't returned, Diddy and Dixie Kong got worried and went to look for him. As they reached the beach, they saw hundreds of strange-looking footprints that led from the sea to form a big circle around the spot where Donkey Kong's chair lay, smashed to pieces. Interesting they come from the sea in this version and not the air. Like, was this the Kremlin's, scuba team that came to get him?
It's interesting, because, they're crocodile men. I guess they could swim.
Yeah.
But this is something I hadn't really thought about before, but in the GBA version, it's just kind of like a number of Kremlings come down from the Flying Croc and kind of it's presented really rudimentary because it's just they're repurposing old sprites for the most part and system limitations and all that. But it kind of looks like, as presented in the GBC game, it looks more like they were able to just kind of get the drop on Donkey Kong because his guard was down. This paints a picture that, like, well, K. Rool just overwhelmed him with sheer numbers, basically.
Yeah. Hundreds.
Sent an army to take this sleeping Donkey Kong down.
Yeah, I mean, I think the GBA version is plenty brutal as it is because you could just get the cutlasses bashing him with their swords. But yeah, I mean, this is the very least.
And the clingers like swooping down. I don't know if they really do anything, but they come down in mass. But hundreds. At the very least, if we're just like actually taking that literally, this is implying at least 100 Kremlings if we're counting both sets of feet, and then there would be peg legs in there. So yeah, I mean it's a lot. So this is why we need that Donkey Kong Warriors game. We got to recreate this.
All right, I'll be Diddy. I'll give you some characters coming up. Kremlings, Diddy gasped in horror. On top of the bits of chair, they found a note. Why don't you read the note?
To the yellow-bellied land-loving Kong family. Ha-ha! We got the big monkey! If you want him back, you scurvy dogs, you'll have to hand over the banana horde. Captain K. Rool.
They simplified the note thing in the GBA remake as well. It's just the same note you find on the Gangplank Galleon. But it's interesting that as I said, the game itself is presented to you in a way that you really don't need the context of this manual to know what's going on, but right. Even
though it does flesh it out more. Like, I think in the game, it's I've kidnapped that lumbering fool Donkey Kong and you'll never see him again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the whole, like, banana horde ransom thing doesn't come up in the game itself, in the Super Nintendo version. It's just, for all you know, K. Rool's just kidnapping Donkey Kong out of spite to torture him. And, like, the ransom aspect is not there at all.
And it's interesting, this change from Donkey Kong, the original Donkey Kong Country, because it is replicating the same thing that happened with the Banana Horde, where you walk in and it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But that was entirely visual storytelling. This is... it's exposition, it's a lot more clear, and also this doesn't update after you finish the game.
Right, yeah. So, why don't you read the next character that speaks?
I thought we'd seen the last of that old rascal for a while.
Sighed Wrinkly Kong. Just Wrinkly. Here's Wrinkly Kong, everybody. You don't know her yet. Here she is.
Yeah. There's no preamble to these character introductions.
Yeah,
you'll find out later.
At the very least, they do explain Dixie with that quick line about her being Diddy's girlfriend. But yeah, he's like, oh, here's Wrinkly, everybody. You know, Wrinkly Kong. Cranky's good-natured old wife, when the rest of the family had read the ransom note.
Yes, there is a little preamble then.
Yeah, but it's still like...
This is why you don't complain until you read the whole thing.
It is still like jarring, like, wait, Wrinkly Kong? And then it does explain it.
I mean, if you're doing like I did and reading this before you play the game, you don't know what Wrinkly Kong even looks like yet.
It is interesting, though, that Swanky isn't here in the actual story in the instruction manual. They do put Swanky in the GBA remake. He's just there on the beach, gesturing like he was on a game show the whole time. But yeah, they do have Wrinkly come in at this point in time, which, I mean, makes sense. She is his mom / grandmom, so she should have some say here, even if Candy doesn't show up at all and is never mentioned once in the original DKC2. Well, grunted Cranky. I suppose we'd better give him the bananas, hadn't we? Diddy was shocked. After all we did to get them back last time, Donkey Kong would go crazy if he lost his bananas again. Got any better ideas, you young whippersnappers? Demanded the old ape. We've got to rescue him, of course, said Diddy and Dixie together. Somehow, in complete unison, including the of course.
That's cute.
Yeah, sure. I'm not actually complaining.
That's a little bit of color as to why these two were together,
right.
I think.
Right. But Cranky just laughed. Oh, really? And who exactly is we? You can be Funky.
Count me out, dudes,
said Funky quickly, backing away from the group.
I hate adventures.
Of course, everybody brings this up when they talk about Funky becoming playable in the Switch version of Tropical Freeze. And I'm like, a character can evolve over time.
I do think back to this line, but I think you can kind of wriggle around it, not just in terms of like developing the character more as Funky becomes a more active participant going forward, but just in Tropical Freeze, Funky is the easy mode, and the act of going through the levels looks so effortless for him that maybe he just doesn't even think of it as, like, what are you talking about? I'm just going about my day.
I'm just going to the store. I'm just picking up a few essentials for around the house. What is all this with the penguins and shit? I don't know. It's a bit of a nuisance. Traffic is terrible today.
I think I'm a bit old for that sort of thing,
said Wrinkly, apologetically. I mean, she would be dead 4 years from this point, so yeah, fair assessment on her end. And I'm sure as spit not gonna do it, snapped Cranky. Not that I'm past my prime, mind you. I could still do a better job than the rest of you put together. But I wouldn't be seen dead in a game that scrolls and has bonus levels and end bosses. Another line.
Speaking of things that get thrown in your face.
Yeah, another line.
Freeze.
Vis-a-vis Tropical Freeze.
It's a soft retcon in the name of making the game more fun.
But also, I think with Cranky, it's just that he's a hypocrite. Like, Cranky doesn't actually care about any of that.
No.
Cranky just
doesn't feel like it.
Well, Cranky also just wants to be a star, and I think the metatextual aspect of this is Cranky knows he wouldn't be given that role in DKC2, even though it was bandied about that he would be teaming up with DK.
You also have the out in Tropical Freeze that, like, in that circumstance, it was personal with Cranky. They kicked him off the island. Along with everyone else.
Right.
In this, like, Cranky's a selfish old bastard. What does he care? Donkey Kong's bananas are on the line.
Right. He's so quick to just give in. He's so quick to just capitulate to K. Rool. Like, what is he, a CEO in 2025? Oh, got him. Ouch. Anyway, Diddy says, what about me? Asked Diddy, stamping his foot. I went with Donkey on his last adventure. Why can't I do it? Of course, Diddy's referring to Donkey Kong Land, which came out mere months before this. You, laughed Cranky. You've only been in one game. He's senile. He's forgetting Donkey Kong Land, which came out just a few months before this.
He doesn't want to call attention to the bet he lost.
No. Again, when he just called up K. Rool like he was an old chum, he doesn't want the extent of his capitulation on display when he's just willing to hand over the banana horde. And you didn't even get your name in the title. You think that makes you a hero? Diddy looked discouraged. But Dixie was quick to stand up for him. You can read Dixie solo.
Give him a chance. He could be a better hero than you ever were, she
challenged. Cranky scowled. You think so, do you? You think he can make his way through all those Kremlins and all those traps all by himself?
He won't be by himself,
she replied.
I am going with him.
Diddy stared at her, and she stared defiantly back. But it's dangerous, he protested.
You're not scared, are you?
Well, of course I'm not.
Well, neither am I. Don't try to argue. If you're going, I'm going with you.
And wow, like, these characters were just fully forward. Like, Dixie is just, she is still this character to this day. And, like, it is kind of incredible. Like, they knew exactly where to go with Dixie and never wavered.
No, this is the dynamic between her and Diddy. This is her personality. This is who she is, and it just is like this forever. Still like this.
Still like this, except maybe Diddy does treat her more like an equal post Donkey Kong Land 3. So
I think you learned from this. Like, yes. Okay, well, I'm never going to be able to stop her.
Yes. Well, and it just says here, Diddy sighed. He knew a hopeless argument when he saw one. Well, heard one would be the correct. Anyway. But still, he was Donkey's only hope. Of course, if he managed to rescue his big buddy, he'd become a real video game hero too. Could he ask for a better chance to prove himself? I just also want to point out that they are calling him Donkey here, which is something that they have gotten away from in the games. Of course, DK is what they really lean into in Bonanza, but Cranky does refer to him as Donkey at the end of the game, in the DLC at least.
I would suspect, and I think this would be a well-founded reason why they might be going with Donkey at this point, because DK also refers to Diddy and Dixie. It's their initials too.
Yeah.
I think over time, DK just cemented itself as, well, that's Donkey Kong. It's even in the DK rap.
Yeah, I think a couple things. I think a couple things cemented it. I think the cartoon actually had a big role to play in that. Hey, DK, and
for good reason. It is just. It's a lot less cumbersome than calling him Donkey Kong every time.
Or Donkey, which makes people think of Shrek anymore. Not that I've seen it. Not that I'm ever going to see it. But, yeah, like, I do like when characters call him Donkey, because it does imply this close level of familiarity with him. Like, only true friends or family can call him Donkey.
I like, I think it's Cranky in DKC 1, if you don't have him with you, sometimes says, like, where's Donks?
Donks. Yeah, the early days, they didn't have everything ironed out, and, yeah. But anyway, yeah. It's also interesting here that, this is where they really bring up the video game hero aspect of the plot, which is really the beating heart of all of this. That is Diddy's conquest, even more so than rescuing Donkey Kong. It's becoming a video game hero. It's paying off.
It's proving he can do
journey. It. Yeah. Anyway, Cranky was looking them over shrewdly. All right, he said. If you somehow get back safely from this and bring back that good-for-nothing donkey with you, I'll admit that maybe you have what it takes after all. But if you don't, there will never be more than cheap cameo roles for you in the future, my boy. Well, even if he does, there might not be much more than cheap cameo games for several years. Diddy, but you're just gonna have to grin and bear that.
I think the gears are just turning in Cranky's head that he can score some banana coins off of this adventure.
Diddy stood up straight and proud, ready for his new quest. I'll bring him back, you'll see, he declared. The others offered him encouragement. Wrinkly gave him a warm smile, while Funky offered his hand for a high five.
Go for it, little dude.
And also, can I just say, for a high five, Diddy only had 4 at this point. What? What are you talking about? High five. That's just on Funky's end. And as soon as the sun rose again, the brave young pair sat out. So yeah, that's the story for Donkey Kong Country. Just in case you're unaware of what this game was about. Really great though. There's just so much lovely little detail in that. I really just loved describing Donkey Kong wiggling his toes in the sand. Like, just stuff that you can very much not only picture, but feel when you read this.
I also appreciate that this is a story that paints such a portrait of the previous playable character in the game. Like, this is... there's nothing really wrong with what DK is doing in this. He just wants a break, but it's a very human. He's not like he's not in cool mascot mode. Mm-hmm. He's a character.
Yeah. Well, also, it's just like the generational divide where Cranky is really coming at him with this boomer energy, this rise and grind, you slack ass.
Yeah.
You've got to like work 17 hours every day. You've got to become the faithful servant of capitalism, and Donkey's just like, yo, give me a day at the beach, please.
Donkey Kong doesn't have like a cool, witty retort for that. He's basically just like, yeah, fuck off.
Yeah. I also love that they do include the full body Cranky Kong render at the side of this story, and they do have him comment on the story where he says, "Arr! This story is even worse than DKC. They're really scraping the bottom of the barrel this time."
I guess I can also give a little bit of context to where I was coming from reading this story. I think I got this game in 1996 or 7. I honestly can't remember which. At the time, I didn't own the original Donkey Kong Country. I had a friend who had the game, and in those days, like, I was still pretty new in general to the concept of video games. I have, like, famously told the story of, like, seeing Donkey Kong Country the first time and not knowing if you were supposed to play it like a text adventure. I mean, an adventure game, a point and click.
Uh-huh.
But I had very briefly been at a friend's house where they had DKC 1, and just fleetingly spending time with the game, the biggest thing that left an impression on me was, well, this game looks really neat, and I like this little monkey with the red hat. He's fun. And then cut to a bit later, I have my own console finally. I can get games on my own. Donkey Kong Country 3 is out at this time, and they are running ads for it. Specifically, the infamous one with the motorcycle Kong. That's
Kitty
maybe
Kong.
Supposed to be Kitty. Yeah, Kitty Kong. And at that time, I hadn't even internalized Diddy's name. I just knew I liked the red-hatted monkey, and I wanted the game with the red-hatted monkey. So I go to the store, and I'm like, I want the game with Kitty Kong, because I'm thinking, well, it's a Donkey Kong game. Surely they don't just change up the character every time. It's got to be Diddy that they're talking about, right? Yeah. And then they point to the game with Kitty on the shelf, and I'm like, that's not the character I want. I want the monkey in the red hat, and they're like, oh, then you want the... Then I'm pointed to the game next to it, which is DKC 2. DKC 2 and 3 were on the shelf at the same time at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. Wait, it's Diddy's Conquest. Oh. The idea of Diddy getting... Like, I had only, like, just surface level... The most surface of level was really cottoned onto this character... And I already find out he's got a starring role. Donkey Kong's been booted out. And this cool monkey in pink is with him. Like, oh, and they're on a pirate ship. Oh, sweet. And then I read this story. I was all over this, and I think this is also like just easy bait when you're a kid to have a kids prove themselves sort of story.
Right.
With the like, in so much as you can, because these character ages are ambiguous, like prove their are up to the level of the adult in the room, i.e. Donkey Kong, and to an even more extent Cranky.
Yeah, like I've said before that Diddy was really the closest I've ever had to a self-insert character in that era, and like Diddy was kind of read as the exact same age I was when I played Donkey Kong Country. So to then watch that character grow alongside me throughout the rest of the 1990s, it was a special treat, and it was like one of the big reasons why Diddy and Dixie endeared themselves so much to me and are still my favorite characters of all time. And you know, like I do view Diddy as the anxious millennial, just like, you know, the younger generation now has the young Pauline in Bonanza. Like Diddy was my kind of compatriot on the Super Nintendo and then the Nintendo 64. So to have him take the lead in DKC2 was actually really special, and really did feel like, oh wow, like this feels even more like it was made for me in particular than even the original Donkey Kong Country was. The next page in the manual, it's the very boring part of the manual where they explain how to turn on the game. And it's called Setting Sail. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, you're gonna want to, you know, put your game pack in your console and hit power. I'll read it though. There's a little bit of flavor here. Ahoy, you scurvy sea dogs! Come to set sail to Crocodile Isle. All right. Well, first you have to plug the cartridge into the Super NES, then turn the power on. You can watch the demo if you want, but how fun is that? Press start when you're ready to set sail for adventure. It's just like, all right, talk it through slowly.
This is like the essential, like, technical overview they have to go over in every manual from this time, but they dress it up a lot to make it visually interesting, and especially like, oh my god, this background.
Yeah, so let's talk about this background really quick, because this includes a very rare, no pun intended, maybe pun intended, I never know anymore. It's a Gangplank Galleon panorama render that's never been officially released. And actually, it has been compressed. It's been squished a little bit in the background, but it's kind of this top view of the Gangplank Galleon. Like not the ludicrous proportions that the Gangplank Galleon takes in this game, but just a galleon that would look almost at home in a game like Sea of Thieves. You've also got just the sparkling ocean water in the background. It's magnificent. And I love, of course, having lived with Sea of Thieves more or less since it was announced in 2015. It is fun to see this like early instance of a rare pirate ship and to see what design aspects carried forward. Like you can see the capstan there, and it's just very familiar.
Yeah.
You know, you can see where the captain's cabin is, where and it's the ship wheel is right above it, as you are accustomed to if you play Sea of Thieves. There was a version of this render that Adrian Smith, former Rare artist, showed off on Twitter some time ago. It's a different version. I think it's an earlier version of the render that actually made it in the instruction booklet, because it's missing several features and it's kind of flipped, and there are a few perspective shifts they're a little bit differently, or a little oriented differently. But yeah, just to my point, there are so many renders that we've never properly seen that Rare made for this game. Not even for the game itself. Like, this is not what this might have been an early version of the Gangplank Galleon map screen before they decided to, like, pull back a little bit and to, like, get Donkey Kong Island in the background. But I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Yeah, it's just fascinating that so many renders of this game were made, and like it feels like it's almost like an exercise in excess. Like, these are almost like treated as disposable because there's just it feels that way because there's just so many bespoke.
It's worth pointing out too that unlike the original Donkey Kong Country instruction manual, which had a lot of like very hyper 90s backgrounds and extreme stylings, they use renders for the background of every single page in this instruction manual. Every little like thing you see in this book is a render of some sort stashed in the background.
It makes this game feel bigger to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
To have that.
It's so grandiose, and it just... again, the fact that we only got little glimpses, like through a peephole, of some of the art assets for this game, it really just felt limitless. And like, when are you going to see this in the game? And God, it's just...
Right, like all these pages that have like gloomy gulch like assets in the background that are like very obscured by like the text and the items. The detail's hidden enough to not make you realize like, oh, this is probably a very small scene that's like just got stuff moved around.
Sure.
When it's that obscured for you, it just looks like, oh my God, look at this humongous creepy forest they rendered.
And
like,
in this,
what am I in for when I get here?
You know, in this game's positive attributes, all of these renders are representative of stuff that you will find in the game. It's not like the Banjo-Kazooie renders of Fungus Forest that didn't, or not even Fungus Forest, but like the early 2.5D build of Banjo-Kazooie that they used as the basis for a lot of the early renders for that game.
Yeah, it feels like this just very economical, like, beneficial happenstance that they have all of these assets at the ready because they had to make them to make the game, but the game itself is on the Super Nintendo. It can't portray them at this definition, at these angles, with this depth. So you get to... It's a treat both before you play the game because you see just enough obscured to be like, oh, I can't wait to get here in the actual game.
Yeah.
And explore this area. But also after you play it, you get to revisit it in this degree of detail.
And I think I'm realizing the extent that the art had on me. You know, usually I like contextualize myself through story and lore and character. Because I'm not the artist of the group, right? I see that ground wholly to you and Dustin and your ilk, but all of the art assets for these Donkey Kong Country games and Donkey Kong Land, the original, they really had an impact on me because there was so much of it. It was everywhere during the years of Donkey Kong Country Mania, like in every Nintendo publication, in all of the promotion for the game, and eventually Rare's website as well, that you really could just immerse yourself in this world, and it felt living, it felt vibrant, and there was just so much of it that yeah, it really did feel like you were just looking at photographs sometimes. Not literally, but it just felt like, oh yeah, we're snapping a picture of the Gangplank Galleon here. Here's a different angle of it that you'll never see again. And it's just very matter of fact. And I think that really worked in their benefit towards making fans, if the fans were willing to look through all this stuff, because it really just sold it to you.
For sure. I mean, I was a very young child at the time, so the impact of 3D being such a new and different technology was kind of totally lost on me. This was just like I was 5 when Toy Story came out. This is just how things could look to me.
Well,
but
for me,
it's
like this
so characterful and considered too.
Yeah, for me, this was like a revolution. Like
on
from
this
what came before.
This page, we have the same icons that are in the game, demonstrating like 1-player, 2-player contest, 2-player team, and it's Diddy with the controller, Diddy and Dixie fighting over the controller, Diddy and Dixie like amicably carrying the controller together. It's
like for me, this was a revolution from what came before, but this was also just a radical leap in quality from just the previous year, from Donkey Kong Country. Everything looked so much more detailed, and it had so much better contrast in the colors, and God, like it was just like, oh wow,
Donkey Kong doesn't look like he's got a candy wrapper around him anymore.
Yeah, you see, like the rendered fur, the textured fur, that's all new. It was this and Killer Instinct 2 where they really started making better use of that. It does have a pipe cleaner effect a little bit, but at the time it was like, whoa, this is such a huge leap forward. Like, what's it going to look like a year from now? What's it going to look like in 2 years? And
it's also worth pointing out, like, we weren't looking at these things on HD displays. We were looking at them on printed page and tiny monitors. Details blended together. You don't really think about how much better things can look until you see them look better.
Right. And this technology would progress and advance, and people would become more skilled at utilizing it. But at the time, this was mind-blowing. This was...
And they were rapid. Like, Rare so rapidly was improving this. Like, we not only had the fur, but like, they solved the problem of having everybody's, like, fingers look segmented, like a... like a ball-jointed toy.
like a big, meaty hot dog sculpture. Yeah. All right. Moving on, we got the, here we go again, controller layout. The controller layout. God, why don't they market any Donkey Kong controller for the Switch or Switch 2 as a controller? Missed opportunity. Oh, God, these marketing executives, they don't know what they're doing anymore. Anyway, this is also the very
we have
boring...
become Cranky Kong.
This is the very also boring part of the manual, but this is kind of essential if you want to know which buttons to press and you don't want to go into this blind. You know, it's pretty basic and you can get the feel of it.
Yeah, what if you press the L button and it's just Swanky Kong smiling at you?
Don't worry, according to this, all the L and R buttons do spins Squidder's platform web. So you're good.
Spit-and
webs. But, yeah, I mean, if you had played the original Donkey Kong Country, it's not hard to figure out where to go from here, even with all the new moves and all the new Animal Buddy abilities. But still, it's worth perusing.
I did have one thing trip me up when I first played DKC 2, and it was because of my brief time with DKC 1, and it was the team up button.
Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't have that in DKC 1. That would also have just let you swap Kongs.
Yeah. I was prepared for the team up because that was something that Nintendo Power really pushed when they first talked about DKC2 in the back of their Donkey Kong Land issue. And it was like, you can now hurl your partner Kong, at enemies. And I was like, what? And so I was ready for it. I was prepped. But yeah, it does take a while if you are just so used to the original to, not accidentally, hurl your partner at a zinger and like lose them. But there is another pop-up Cranky put down here, and this one has lived rent-free in my head for the last 30 years. I love this quote where he says, "Look at all these buttons. It's ridiculous, I say. Kids in my day wept with joy if we gave them 2 to press." And I love that is like such the perfect old man hyperbole. Oh yes, the kids would weep with joy if you gave them 2 buttons to press. Oh, it's like the hoop with a stick,
Yeah, this is building to his very good comment in the DK64 manual, because oh boy, Cranky, if you got a problem with this controller.
Oh yeah. Cranky would not begrudge me for holding the N64 controller incorrectly, like so many people do. I hold them on the outside prongs. I don't like holding the middle prong. What is that? All right. Then we get the actual character pages, and the Diddy and Dixie get 2-page spreads where it really goes into detail all their different moves. And we're not going to read all the moves. I do want to read the introduction, and I want to read their specific advantages, and also, of course, Cranky's insults towards both. So,
yeah.
Diddy's is titled, "He's Back! A Dinosaur." Diddy Kong. He's back. Diddy Kong. Diddy's in the starring role this time, and he's off to prove himself a true member of the Kong family of video game heroes. And this is our first instance of video game hero being a proper noun, capitalized. It wasn't in the story, but it is here, and I do view it, as I've explained before, as a proper title, as an honorific, like, doctor. It's Diddy Kong, video game hero. He'll have his work cut out for him as he storms Captain K. Rool's Pirate Haven on Crocodile Isle. And under Diddy's advantages, it says, Diddy's cartwheel jump enables him to make jumps that are longer than average jumps. Also notice that Diddy carries the barrel out in front of him, and that it acts like a shield as he runs into enemies while carrying it. So, for all of you who are saying, well, Dixie's overpowered, why would I ever play as Diddy? As somebody who did play as Diddy in this game, because I played as Diddy in the first game, that shield, if you then switch to Dixie for any reason, you miss it when you don't have them holding the item out in front of you.
No, I played as Diddy a ton. He's a valuable meat shield for when you need to have Dixie later to make a jump.
And Cranky in the corner, very small, he says, "Bah! This lad had a couple of frames in DKC, and now he thinks he's a big star." I swear, I wouldn't know what things like frames were if it weren't for all of Cranky's weird comments in the original Donkey Kong Country and here as well.
Yeah, I remember even him just complaining in DKC1 that his beard moved too much when he rocked back and forth.
These are really weird games. Have you ever thought, like, what the hell? Like, and the fact that these were so popular too, that kids ate this up. Like, what the hell? Was this like the tail end of the lead in the gasoline? Was it just affecting our brains? No.
I think I appreciate the confidence to make a joke without worrying about whether or not somebody has enough inside baseball knowledge to get it.
That's the thing though. Like, I really always loved that about not just kids media, but really anything back. I am sounding like Cranky Kong. Good Lord. Because I did not understand like half the references in something like Animaniacs, like I was just like, what are they? This is clearly a reference. This is clearly a parody of something I do not understand. Interesting. I want to know more. Like, so much of the basis of my early education was just things being referenced that I didn't get and kind of filing it away for later.
Like, I'll cop to this, and I think I've mentioned it before. It wasn't until Donkey Kong 64 that I really knew what DK Arcade was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, to me, Cranky, I didn't know Cranky was supposed to be the original Donkey Kong, but it didn't matter. All of his jokes work if you just read him as either a crotchety old man, or you just accept that, like, okay, he was a big deal in a video game I've never played.
Yeah.
And
Which
now
was true.
he's
Which was true.
jaded and an asshole. And yeah, that's exactly what he was.
Yeah. And I think, like, yeah, like, a kid's not going to necessarily understand all of this, but it will mostly
But
land.
a kid does understand being talked down to by an older adult.
Yeah. And also, that's what I appreciated about kids' media. That's the kids' media I gravitated towards. It was kids' media that actually didn't really talk down to me and didn't take my intelligence for granted or my ability to figure stuff out through context. And I mean, that's why I really liked, like I said, like Animaniacs or Tiny Toon Adventures before it, where like some of the cartoons, I was like, oh yeah, like this is fun. Or just the whole like output of Nickelodeon from that era. And then eventually like the Simpsons, early Simpsons, and, you know, not kids media, but it was still like, oh, this is operating on a different level than a lot of the TV shows of the era. So, to have that in something like Donkey Kong Country, it did feel very much like of the 90s, but it also just has like that timeless appeal towards kids who don't want to just be shoveled like kids stuff. You know, if you feel like you're beyond it at a certain age, you're like, no, like that's baby stuff. Give me something hardcore like this game with the monkeys. Right. Flipping the page, we got Dixie's move set, and it says, "Here comes Dixie Kong." Dixie and Diddy are inseparable friends, and go everywhere together. Both share a love of adventure and the awesome abilities to make it fun. Dixie's powerful ponytail allows her to equal and sometimes even surpass Diddy's adventuring abilities. So it's interesting that this kind of goes out of its way towards describing the relationship in strictly platonic sense. It's like hedging its bets. It's like, you know, they're not necessarily boyfriend and girlfriend.
It's so funny to see this here, because I mentioned back in our Racing Layer episode that when Dixie Kong was sort of like reintroduced in Tropical Freeze, I was so concerned that Nintendo was going to take the tack of soft retconning Dixie and Diddy to just be good friends.
Yeah.
And mutually friends with Donkey Kong. And they, to their extreme credit, they didn't. Like all of the expository blurbs, promotional blurbs about Dixie in Tropical Freeze all say she's Diddy's girlfriend. Which just makes it, yeah, the irony is here, like, no, here's Ground Zero, and it's just kind of playing it ambiguous.
Which, you know, earlier the instruction manual, and maybe that was, you know, from Leigh Loveday, it said, you know, or at least Cranky described her as his girlfriend. And I know Cranky's kind of an unreliable narrator sometimes, but...
And also... this was the 90s. I could also see, depending on who wrote this versus who wrote the story section, it was extremely common in kids' media. Maybe still is. I think less so now. It was an extremely, like, easy joke in kids' media to have a boy character and a girl character who got along, and some asshole character coded to be a jerk popping up and saying, "Oh, is this your girlfriend?"
Right.
And Cranky Cranky would be that asshole.
Yeah.
So I could see maybe hedging your bets. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear nowadays that, like, no, they're just fully a romantic couple.
Well, yeah, and I think all the fans of the time just viewed them in that light, and I think any barriers on that being an actual thing just quickly fell away by the sheer force of will of the fans, and also Rare. Like, you know, like they didn't really shy away from it much after this, and yeah, it just kind of was set in stone in a way that, like, even Mario and Peach kind of struggle with to this day. Like, there's clearly this romantic element, but they shy away from it so much into this being this weird, like, eternally sexless mascots.
Yeah.
Whereas,
God, I'm so glad they got out in front of this from the beginning with Diddy and Dixie.
yeah, I mean, I think really a lot of it was just what Rare did in the 90s with this series and really established who the characters were and what their relationships were. Not always to the clearest extent, see Donkey, Cranky, and so forth, but it is
Right.
like, I think one of the ways that Donkey Kong, despite being so closely related to the Super Mario series, is different in that the characters are allowed to have a little bit more depth in the realms of their own personal relationships. But interestingly, they don't list Dixie's advantages here, because I think it's self-explanatory what Dixie's
I guess they
advantages
know
are.
they have to convince you of Diddy's advantages.
Yeah, like Dixie's always described as easy mode, and I don't think that's necessarily fair, but that helicopter spin, oh boy, you get used to it. It it's so much fun. Who doesn't want to just float gracefully through the air? And yeah, that is her advantage, and that's what makes her so much fun to play. But in the box, towards the bottom, they do describe the team up ability, and they say when Diddy and Dixie are together, they form a powerful team. Press the A button to pick up the other character. You can then throw your pal, using the Y button. You can use the throw to attack enemy characters or to reach normally inaccessible places and items. Try to toss your friend in many different situations. Boy, out of context.
Maybe this is why they downplayed the relationship on this page.
Yeah, I mean, there's still kids here, you know, inarguably, so you don't want to actually go in that direction, but yeah, that's more of a line for Conquer than it would be appropriate here.
Yeah,
But yeah,
press the Y button to chuck your romantic partner into the nearest lava pool.
And Cranky, you get the first baseline misogyny from Cranky here. That will be deep in the actual game itself, where Cranky says, "What's going on here? She should be the damsel in distress, not one of the stars." And, you know, it's played for laughs in 95. Like, look at this out of touch fucker. But sadly, I think it's even more relevant to today than it was then.
Yeah, at the time, like, I credit this game for unambiguously, Cranky is unambiguously in the wrong here.
Yeah.
He's being a jackass. And at the time, I thought, like, surely nobody could actually still think like this, and unfortunately, as I find people definitely do. I think I brought up on our Rare Where episode the letter Leigh received from someone complaining they had to play as a girl in Perfect Dark. And Leigh very, very hilariously taking them to task over it.
I mean, there's always been these people.
But yeah, needless to say, things nowadays, well, it turns out there are a lot of people who think these very ugly things.
The difference in the 90s was, you know, and of course the 90s, I'm not saying the 90s were in any way this glorious utopia of forward thinking, but it's also, in some respects, it was a little bit warmer than people give it credit for today. And one of the areas where it was, yeah, this like, like girl power kind of thing.
It was a very girl power decade.
Yeah. And you didn't have assholes easily weaponizing it for profits or notoriety on the internet. So it was, especially in kids media, something like this, while rare, was more commonplace. And yeah, once you kind of get over that hurdle, if you are this boy who's like concerned that people will make fun of you for playing as the girl character, playing a game as kick-ass as DKC 2 will quickly put those concerns to bed.
For that reason, also, I think it was extremely correct and important that even though people complain about like the Diddy and Dixie dynamic being potentially a little bit unbalanced in Dixie's favor, I think that is important, that if there is a best character in this game, the one you want to use, that it is the girl in all pink.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I felt about Peach in Mario 2.
Yeah, Peach was probably the earliest time I like played as a girl and learned that's okay. Like get out of your asshole. It's okay.
Yeah, it's the instant way to shut anybody up who wants to be a jerk about, like, oh, you're playing as the bright pink girl is, well, she's just the best one.
Yeah.
Why would am I going to play as Toad who can barely jump? No.
Yeah, Toad fucking sucks, dude. And the thing is, too, it worked. It worked in 1995. Anybody who played this game fell in love with Dixie to the point where they made her the star of the next one. And like they ran into the exact same thing, albeit a little bit more muted because this game didn't sell as much as DKC 1 did, where the sidekick character they created for it became so popular, they just kind of had to give them the sequel.
Yeah, they did kind of write themselves into a little bit of a corner, as much as I love that the conceit of this game is Diddy proving himself a hero, coming into his own, that he is on the level of Donkey Kong. That does raise the question, well, Dixie's also 50-50 here. What does that make her?
Which is kind of what necessitates DKC 3. I mean, that's really what, like, justifies the game in my mind is, well, Dixie has to go through the same thing then. She has to go through her own video game hero quest.
And in a way also kind of makes Cranky just arbitrarily being a dick to her work a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's like, well, he's just not giving her the time of day anyway.
But, I mean, and then we're really getting far afield here, but that's why Dixie not being included in DK64 felt so wrong. Because in many ways, Donkey Kong 64... Yeah, Donkey Kong 64 feels like the culmination of all the little story threads from the DKC trilogy, but then you don't include the, like, character who just proved herself as a video game hero in her own right. And it's just like, here's her sister, whatever, they're interchangeable. And it's just like, no. I love Tiny, but...
Yeah, it's a misstep that I feel like could have been course-corrected if, very quickly, if the studio making Donkey Kong games, wasn't yanked off of it very quickly afterward, but it kind of just did put Dixie in a really unfortunate position for a very long time.
She clawed her way back, though. And, I mean, look at them now. I mean, the fact that Diddy
she's beyond it now.
Yeah, Diddy and Dixie are viewed as almost inseparable. Like, I love the way Bonanza did it, even though they didn't have a huge role to play in the game. The way they were presented was so... I mean, we talked about it for hours on the Racing Layer episode. I don't need to get into it here. But
even on the episode with Dustin you just did, like, I agreed, like, a lesser version of Bonanza could have just had Diddy hosting that game by himself.
And, like, I think
they made the choice to not.
I think a large part of it, too, is just how much Donkey Kong Country 2 has actually taken on esteem over the years. And that is another thing that just the fandom has kind of pushed over the line and just really manifested into reality is Donkey Kong Country 2. Not everybody will agree it's the best one, but by and large, I feel like that is the majority opinion. And Diddy and Dixie as a duo are beloved as much, or in some cases even more, than Donkey and Diddy as a duo. So
yeah, I do think the more that the fandom has become the ones running the asylum, the more and more the foothold has taken root that, no, Donkey Kong Country 2 is the best of the trilogy.
But don't
Donkey
you
Kong
dare...
Country 1 might be the more well-known,
yeah. But don't you dare besmirch DKC 3 either, or you'll have a fight on your hands. But yeah, I mean, it does feel like the legacy of this game took a while to really take shape, and a large part of that is, as you said, the fandom kind of influencing things and then eventually taking over at Nintendo itself, from all sides of the Pacific. Just say like, hey, yeah, we're in charge now, and we like all of this stuff. This is what we've been obsessing over for decades, so this is the way it's going to be. All right, well, moving on, we got Golden Treasure with 5 exclamation marks. And these are the big golden collectibles. In this case, it says gold doubloons and pieces of 8. Neither are in this game, really. Pieces of 8 are slivers of coins that, anyway.
Grab by the Ghoulies has completely ruined the phrase pieces of 8 for me.
Yes. Even Sea of Thieves doesn't incorporate pieces of 8. Pirate loot and seaborne swag. It's all here, strewn across Crocodile Isle. By bagging much coin, you gain many gameplay advantages. And I think it's interesting, the first one they list, Cranky's video game hero coin. The only one that's not actually required for like seeing the ending of the game or actually getting the completion, 102% completion.
This spread in general, like red left, like top to bottom, left to right, kind of lists the currencies in like reverse order of prominence within the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's the hero coins, which one in every level. The Creme coins, several in every level except in the Lost World. And then the Banana Bunch coins, which are everywhere.
Yep. Although not as frequent as they appear in Returns or Tropical Freeze, which I always max out at like 999 very quickly in that one. Yeah, they are still, pretty frequent here. And I do like that they list Cranky's video game hero coin first. And it's funny because I always call them hero coins when the correct title is video game hero coin, and the colloquial term that really set in starting with DKC3, just DK coins. But I think it just, in my mind, shortening it to hero coin made the most sense for what it was in this game. And it says these huge DK coins. So DK coin is used here, but
and it is just what they are.
Yeah, these huge DK coins are well hidden, 1 per level, by Cranky himself. Collecting these will improve Diddy's status as a video game hero in Cranky's eyes. You have not really finished a level until you have collected the video game hero coin. Thematically, these are the most important, even if they aren't actually required. Like, for Diddy's Conquest, I would say these are the most important, even though, of course, Creme coins are the most important because they actually get you to the true ending of the game. But this makes you feel superior to Mario on Cranky's video game hero screen, so what's really more important? The Creme coin description says, you earn a creme coin in each bonus level. There are 3 different types of bonus levels. In one type, you must collect all the stars to make the creme coin appear. In the second type, the creme coin is hidden and you must find it. In the third type, you have to defeat all the baddies to make it appear. You can use creme coins to pay off the monstrous Clubber so you can cross his toll bridge. What is on the other side? That's for you to find out. Now, I was intrigued. Okay, so there's a lot in this instruction manual that talks about Clubber and what's on the other side of his toll bridge. And there are references to the Lost World. And I felt like the biggest idiot in the world when I finally paid Clubber 15 creme coins and I realized, oh, they're the same thing.
Yeah, I really appreciate that this manual never actually connects the 2 dots for you, even though it'll strongly hint at it. So, yeah, when I finally did get 15 creme coins in DKC2 for the first time, I got to have that mind-blowing moment of, oh, this is how you get to the Lost World, because I'd seen it in the manual.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you got it. It made you feel like you found a big secret.
Yeah. I'll
Even
talk
though,
about it.
Yeah, it was obvious, but...
I'll talk about it a little bit more when we talk about the Lost World description here, but that created so much anxiety in young me because I thought it was going to be nigh impossible to actually find the Lost World. And then there's a description for Banana Bunch coins. This is the last item description I will read. It says, these coins are used to pay the various members of the Kong family for their help. Yes, the days of free advice are over. Even old Cranky charges for his words of wisdom, although the insults are still free. Boy, I was also apprehensive about this change, about actually having to pay the Kongs for everything, including saving your game, which, yeah, is a bit cheap, I'll admit, but yeah, it did feel special when you actually saved your game, because it was like, you know, you really had to work for it.
You know, I think back to the, like, frustration of knowing that in DKC 1, Cranky was supposed to have way more rotating dialogue that was actually helpful past the first world. But if that was implemented as originally intended in the final game, maybe it would have stung more that you have to pay for them this time around because his advice is actually useful in this game.
yeah. It kind of makes sense, yeah, that he was being withholding in DKC. Just because, hey, he's doing it for free. You're just visiting him on his porch. He's just having a little rock back and forth. He doesn't want to give away the goods. And, yeah, here he's like set up a good system for himself where he charges, really exploiting the abduction of his son/grandson. But, you know, again, he's the boomer who's all about capitalism, rise and grind. I
wonder what it says about the Kongs that they didn't charge money for their services on DK Island. The second they go to Crocodile Isle, they're upcharging, and they don't really drop their prices by DK64.
I've speculated before that maybe the Kremlings have a tax on their businesses there, and to justify the overhead, they have to charge even Diddy and Dixie.
And just like in real life, once they've raised their prices, that you don't bring them back down.
Inflation, that's the way it works. Yeah, you get over that line once, and they're never going to reduce it. And also, you get less in each package? Like, what, 8 cans instead of 12? Why am I buying this seltzer? Come on. The following page just says more swag, and these are the more like ancillary, uncommon, or just completely run-of-the-mill items like bananas, banana bunches.
I do want to call attention to one thing on this, one of the items on this page.
Sure.
The no animal sign. I hadn't played the game at this point. Like I said, I was reading the manual before I loaded it up. And I had played Donkey Kong Country 1, and Donkey Kong Country 1 had no signs like this. You just took the animal buddy to the end of the level, and that was it.
Right.
So I think reading this description, which says, this sign indicates that your animal friend cannot continue beyond this point. If you try to go past, he will simply disappear. Don't feel too bad, though. You'll be rewarding depending on how difficult it was to reach the sign. I think, like, some part of me, like, felt dread reading this.
Sure, yeah.
Because it was like, well, the game is telling me something bad's going to happen to my animal friend if I disobey this sign. What do I do? And now I realize, like, there's a very solid mechanical reason it does this, and also it justifies why when you finish a level, the animal buddy isn't with you in the next one because the animal buddy went away.
Right.
Like it was a smart change, but at the time, I just on site reading this, my immediate reaction was no, I don't want this.
Yeah, it's one of those flourishes that I also wasn't completely on board with until I played the game, because to me it kind of broke the reality of it a little bit. Like, the original Donkey Kong Country felt a bit more grounded at times because, yeah, you just ride the animal until you lose it, or you leave the level. And here it's just like magically disappearing, and you can transform into the animals. What is that? But like, ultimately, it's not a big deal. You get used to it.
No.
It just becomes part of the language of the series. Another favorite Cranky line, though.
This one's very good.
Oh, God. I've never seen so much worthless rubbish. I'm surprised they don't give you a special trash barrel to haul it all around in. And yeah, like that is, for so early in the series, like 1 year into the series, that is a very, like, prescient cutting remark to make. It's just like already like making fun of the conventions of the series, and how it especially becomes apparent when you look at the next page and you see all the different barrels. My God.
Also funny in hindsight, because one of the, like, big rallying cries in the, like, the fresh off the buyout era of actually these games were never good was, there's so much stuff to collect.
Yeah.
And yeah, here's the avatar of out of touch whining complainers.
And
complaining
yeah,
about there being too many items.
And yeah, you turn the page and you learn there's 14 different types of barrels. It's also funny too to see, like, barrel cannon, and cannon is with a K, and you're like, no, that's not right. What are you doing?
So I don't know if you want to cover anything on this page. There is one thing on this page I really want to cover because it's like a very sticking point memory of my childhood.
Go for it.
It's the section on the plus and minus barrels.
Oh, okay.
Plus and minus barrels are found on the different roller coaster levels. The plus barrels will add time to the timer. The minus barrels will send you into the minus world. Wrong game. Actually, they will take seconds away from the timer. When the timer runs out, Cackle will catch you. Couple things. Aren't these only found on one roller coaster level?
Yes, the plus and minus barrel is only... I was thinking the check and X barrels.
I guess if they're counting the bonus levels like they did for DKC1, maybe.
Yeah, so yeah, the check and X barrels are on Target Terror, but the plus and minus barrels are only in Haunted Hall.
The actual reason I wanted to call attention to this, a reference to the minus world. I had no clue what this was talking about when I was a kid, and I'm kind of surprised that the minus world had cemented itself as enough of a thing culturally for that Nintendo was officially acknowledging it in this call-out that has nothing to do with Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I knew about it because I had read about it in some sort of publication in the early to mid 90s, like it's before this, obviously, but I learned about it. It was one of those like various, I think, third-party tips and tricks books that would be released. Like, did you know? And before the internet, like that would probably be the only way to find out, unless you heard about it on the playground or from an older acquaintance. They'd be like, "Hey, let me show you this."
And also a rare example of Nintendo officially acknowledging a programming goof and like a pretty one that leads to a pretty severe consequence. Like I would like even just a few years later, like when Missing No is probably like my generation's like biggest equivalent to what the Minus World was for people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Nintendo, like, can you imagine Nintendo just outright acknowledging Missing No in this way? I can't.
Much to my chagrin, no, because I really would love for them to lean into Missing No, but they never will. And granted, that's not just Nintendo. I'm sure like all the various subsidiaries in charge of Pokemon, it makes it even more fraught. But yeah, it is surprising to see stuff like that in here. Like everything about this felt so like loosey-goosey and cutting edge in the way like Nintendo had portrayed themselves both before and after this play it loud era. This is just like, we're going to throw tradition into the wind, into the fan.
There's a nice informality to all of this presentation.
Right. And look, it worked. It worked on me. I ate this shit up. Yeah. So, I mean...
It clearly worked on me because I'm still harping about it 30 years later.
In the live stream, Claire S'mores had joined us and said, "Meanwhile, I was into Mario because I loved being condescended to as a kid." I was into Mario once upon a time too. Like I think my journey with Donkey Kong Country wouldn't have been as profound if I hadn't had Mario as the template for 2D platformers.
Absolutely. And I was kind of the same way. And I think a big thing that kind of led to me latching more onto Donkey Kong as years went by more than Mario was kind of touched on in the previous episode and also just in the course of us doing this, where I was a huge Mario fan when I was a kid, but I was a fan of like the various facets of Mario. I liked the game, I liked the show, and back in those periods, like ancillary media and the games themselves just kind of blurred into each other. You kind of viewed them as all of a whole with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And like same with Mario RPG. And as the years went on, you kind of like things that were explicitly like that I had just taken for granted as like, yeah, that's just part and parcel with Mario. He's a New Yorker with a deep, gruff voice. And like I just kind of realized, over time, there's like a clear divide between the games and the media that surrounds them. And when it is just the games, they don't have as many opportunities to be as characterful. Donkey Kong Country series, and keeping in mind the cartoon was not a part of this at this point,
right?
This all was a cohesive whole, and it all did fit together. It did all feel related, and in a way that the disparate parts of Mario didn't. And it was kind of, I think part of why I latched on to this game in particular at the time was it felt like the this reaffirmation of what you want to believe as a kid, that like, oh, a video game is just a cartoon, but I can move it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and it never really let up. Like, and Donkey Kong Country 2 in particular had so much personality, and all the characters felt so alive and fully realized, and that attitude never let up.
Right, from the flavor text to the very thoughtful like scene setting of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To this presentation with in-character commentary, it's all just paints such a beautiful tapestry.
Well, speaking of scene setting and painting a tapestry, we have The Legend of Crocodile Isle, which is the world-to-world description, complete with the map screen renders of each environment, or most of the environments. They kind of let up after the third world and just show you renders that take place in that world. But it's interesting that it's every world except the Flying Croc. They preserve that little twist that K-Rool's Keep is not the end of the main campaign. Mm-hmm. They keep that twist, but everything else, they tell you the exact order the worlds come in, which is kind of surprising, considering that, you know, the original Donkey Kong Country manual got around it by just discussing biomes and level archetypes rather than the actual locations on DK Island. It's just like jungle, mountain. And here it's just like, no. Well, they call it Gangplank Galley. Wrong. But Gangplank Galleon, Crocodile Cauldron, Cranky, Crazy Kremland, and so on. Just surprising how upfront they were, especially coming out of Bonanza when I was like, oh, no spoilers, please. And I titled all the episodes by their sub-layer names rather than give away that there's a landfill layer, you know? So, yeah, just like, don't worry about it. Here's all the worlds. The appeal and the discovery, all of that awaits you, that will not be ruined by knowing what the worlds are, which is kind of weird.
As I remember how I felt reading this as a kid, which is very different to how I'd feel now.
Yeah.
Which wasn't, oh, that this just ruined all the surprises. It was a feeling of, oh man, I can't wait to get here. This looks fun.
Sure.
I want to see what this is like. I think the only one that was maybe a letdown in that regard is Crazy Kremland, but that's just because your imagination conjures a lot more than the Super Nintendo can of what you can do with a Kremling theme park.
Sure. Yeah. And I think for me, this was very, very effective. And also, like, I wasn't too concerned about, oh no, it spoiled for me, because this was the game itself effectively telling me what I needed to know. And so it didn't feel like anything was being ruined for me and me experiencing this, because no, Donkey Kong Country 2 wants me to know what's ahead.
Yeah, this isn't really telling you much more than just looking carefully at the map screen of Crocodile Isle itself will tell you.
So, beside the legend of Crocodile Isle, it says, as the home port of Captain K. Rool's cutthroat pirates, Crocodile Isle is teeming with all types of Kremlings. There's even more variety of terrain on this island than there was in Donkey Kong Country. And K. Rool definitely has the home turf advantage here. That line in particular really stuck with me when considering this game in the years going forward, where it's just like, yeah, like that is what makes the place setting in this so effective, is you are on enemy territory.
For sure. It definitely, I also think it's part of what makes this and Banjo-Tooie feel like a piece of one another, where it's a sequel that is taking you to a new land that is More ostensibly in Tui, but like directly under the control of your nemesis.
It really is something that this team, of course, evolved into the Banjo team. They really like to do. It's like, okay, for the sequel, let's put it on more like expressly enemy territory.
And I guess that's weird to say since Grunty's Lair is the hub of Banjo-Kazooie. But
Yeah,
everywhere
I know,
go,
but it's
aside from Mad Monster Mansion and Rusty Bucket feels very disconnected from it. Rusty Bucket and Mad Monster Mansion are, if anything, like the Creme Croc Industries of Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah. Yeah, like for me, like I don't think of Grunty's Lair as much as I think of Spiral Mountain in all of its splendor, rather than the like kind of dystopian Spiral Mountain of Tui.
And Tui also begins with the line of Banjo saying he doesn't think the adventure is going to be as easy this time.
Yeah.
And that's also the framing they go with here. Of you're going to have a tougher time.
Bottles dies, which I guess is the closest equivalent to Donkey Kong getting abducted. Like this friend, this pillar of the first adventure is now gone in some respects, and you're just gonna have to get on without them. And yeah. All right, let's read these descriptions. Cameron, why don't you read the description for the erroneously titled Gangplank Galley?
Diddy's first action takes place aboard K. Rool's scuttled flagship, Gangplank Galleon. Even though this hulk isn't seaworthy, it's still manned by a scurvy Kremlin crew. You'll find lots of hooks and rigging to climb on here. You can also duck in the flooded cargo hold for more fun.
I should point out that Kremlin crew is not in the proper noun that everybody's thinking of. It's Kremlin crew with a C, lowercase.
Also,
but,
if you couldn't tell visually in the game, this is hard confirmation that, yeah, the Gangplank Galleon is not seaworthy anymore. They beached it on the rocks of the island.
Yeah, although I will point out, I don't think it's technically scuttled yet. It's definitely breached. It's definitely flooding, but it's still, it
shouldn't go anywhere, but it's not sunk.
It's not sunk. Like, if you want to see what a truly scuttled Gangplank Galleon looks like, play Bonanza's DLC. But, yeah.
I'll also point out, since we get a better look at it here than in the game itself, Donkey Kong Island is in the distance render.
Yeah, Donkey Kong Island, the incorrect earlier depiction of Donkey Kong Island before they tweaked it in the final build of DKC, where Creme Croc is somehow behind Vine Valley. But
it is from a different angle, owing to it being a 3D model.
Yeah. Just squint your eyes, say it's the swamp gas from Cranky distorting where the smokestacks are. It's fine. It's fine.
Maybe they're in this was a picture taken mid-process of them hauling the remains of the factory away.
All right, moving on. Crocodile Cauldron. I'll read this one. Visitors venturing onto Crocodile Isle receive a warm reception from the bubbling lava of Crocodile Cauldron. The key to these levels is to avoid getting burned in the ever-present red-hot lava. Fortunately, there are many different ways to keep your feet cool. Crocodile heads provide safe stepping stones in one area, and hot air balloons will give you a ride in another. Yeah, we always say this. We said it before in the last episode. How wild is it that the second world of the game is the big lava world?
I will also comment, it's wild to me how much of a difference tonally it makes to the like level of like sinister threat of a volcano level if you set it to smooth jazz piano.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like boom, boom.
I'm like it makes it almost feel like it's a hot spring, even though this is very clearly not what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking to Donkey Kong Country Returns. Its final world, Sans Golden Temple, was just volcano, and it had the very ominous bum 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 bum. and any Mario game. But here, yeah, it is.
Very the most whimsical video game volcano of death I think you'll ever find.
Which is part of the charm of this game, and how totally different it feels from so many other, not only Nintendo games, but games in the Donkey Kong series. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. Just like Stickerbush Symphony was originally designed to be a water theme for this game. Going off script, going against grain, going against type for what songs you would think would be appropriate works so well here. I will let you read Crazy Kremland, so I'll read Cranky. Yet another Kremlin galleon has sunk here in Cranky, once the port of Crocodile Isle, as if anyone would really want to visit. The place is now a swamp, crawling with rats and other vile vermin. Some of the underwater action here is particularly gloomy, so you'll need a friend with a light to show you the way. Talk about lines from this manual that live rent-free in my head. The description of this being the port of Crocodile Isle once upon a time, but it's just become this fetid bayou. It conjured up so many thoughts. For one, why? How? How long ago was this the port? What are the Kremlins doing in which the ecology of this just...
Does this speak to a better time before K. Rool just started letting the rot set in, hint, hint?
Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, once you view this not so much as the swamp world, which, yeah, it is the swamp world, but once you view it as the former port of Crocodile Isle, and you look at all those, moss and algae covered, boardwalks and docks.
It's also an extremely clever way to effectively have a second pirate ship world by also introducing the swamp worlds alongside it and just kind of recoloring the water green in all of the ship levels. Just a very, very smart economical use of the level archetypes that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also love that Cranky, in theory, should be the second world if it's the port, and the Kremlin smash into the other side of the island, smash into Crocodile Cauldron instead, which speaks to the haphazard nature of how the Gangplank Galleon came from Donkey Kong Island, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe they were sailing at night. I didn't see a lighthouse.
That is true. Maybe this one also flew into space. We don't know. All right, Crazy Kremlin, Cameron.
All right. What do the Kremlings do for fun when they aren't making the Kong family's life miserable? They go to Crazy Kremland, the island amusement park. This area features roller coasters that are not only in extreme states of disrepair, they are also haunted.
Wrong.
Are they, though?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. We don't know. I mean, there could be ghosts that just don't make themselves known. Yeah, I guess there are cloaks hanging nearby.
There's a weirdness here in that I don't know if, was there going to be more than one level with Cackle? Did they move Cackle's level around? Because another... you can see it in this render on the page, slightly obscured, but... Yep. Amid the background decor of Crazy Kremland, which in the game itself is so far off into the distance, it's just background flavor for the roller coaster levels, is a ghost house.
Yeah.
And I kind of wonder, well, maybe there was going to be a haunted house in this theme park, and they cut it or transposed it to Gloomy Gulch.
Yeah, my theory has always been that Haunted Hall was always supposed to be in Crazy Kremland, but then when Gloomy Gulch really became the haunted forest, they just thought it made sense to just save most of the ghost stuff or the bespoke ghost stuff for that. And then you had the incongruity of why is there a roller coaster in this haunted library if it's a literal haunted library and not part of the theme park vibe?
I guess it might have also been... I could also see like some insecurity of the theme park world having 3 levels that were roller coaster auto-scrollers.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say.
Wanting to break it up a little bit more.
Could have also been that Rickety Race was conceived after they moved Haunted Hall. I don't know.
Could also be.
Yeah, I think that as weird as it was to have the roller coaster in the library in the haunted forest, it does probably work better for pacing.
Yeah, I wouldn't move it back.
No.
I think it works better in Gloomy Gulch.
I mean, these theme parks, they always want to expand, you know? Like, look at Epic Universe. Look at Donkey Kong Country. Being in
Crazy Cramland would give some more context to the inexplicable nature of haunted roller coaster library.
Right.
Because if it's a haunted house in a theme park, yeah, it probably looks like a musty old library because it's set dressing, it's theming. In Gloomy Gulch, you create the opposite issue of, well, having a haunted library here makes sense, but why is there a roller coaster going through it?
I mean, you know, those like ladders with wheels on them in libraries. It's just a more extreme version of that. Yeah, I always rationalized it in my head as Kremland was expanding a little bit, and they built this roller coaster and an old actual abandoned library because Kremlins don't read.
If the Kremlings need an easier way to reach the shelves in their library, they're going to do it in the most dangerous way possible.
Yeah, I mean, if there isn't a chance of fatality, then they're not interested. It's how you get them on board with learning, and why Kong College ultimately flopped for Wrinkly as her, like, educational outreach program. Anyway, I'll go ahead and read Gloomy Gulch. It's that great render, too, of Diddy holding a flashlight as they walk through the forest, and you have these enormous, cloaks in the background, just looming, holding a barrel. I love this. It's
a great render, and I'm not sure we've seen it in better quality than this.
Yeah, I will have to check our gallery. I think we have a slightly better version of this in our gallery that doesn't have the fold in the page at the very least. But yeah, it reminds me of the opening to the X-Files.
It is one of those renders that, like I was saying earlier, makes the environment it's set in feel so much bigger than it actually is.
Right. All right. You're not out of the woods yet. In fact, you're just entering it when you get to Gloomy Gulch. This spooky area is also haunted by the evil Kremling spirits known as Cloak and Cackle. Even the ropes that once provided a safe way to climb over obstacles are now ghostly and insubstantial.
Ghost rope mention, and we do get a little bit of context for the ghost ropes there. It's like they were the ropes that were once there, but they too, like, no longer actually exist in the physical plane, and these are just ethereal remnants from the past. I have checked, by the way. There is a cleaner version of this render, but it is still, like, clearly scanned from something.
Oh, yeah. Like, most DKC2 renders are scanned.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Anyway, read K. Rool's Keep, because I want to read The Lost World selfishly.
Captain K. Rool is no fool. He has saved the most dastardly traps for use in his own fortress lair. None has entered K. Rool's Keep and lived to tell the tale. Will Diddy or Dixie be the first? Couple things. I love this. I know this isn't the full version of this render because it's cut off at the bottom. Dixie would normally be here.
Mm-hmm.
I love the clamp on. I love any time in these renders that they set a character in the space doing something other than mugging at the camera. And this is like a clamp on, clearly like about to munch the shit out of Diddy while he's distracted.
Yeah, Diddy is balancing on a chain in K. Rool's Keep, trying to reach a banana bunch. On the actual walkway behind him, there's a clamp on and a click-clack
And the chain is swaying, like Diddy is jostling the chain. It's
Yeah.
so cool. So cool.
You're really getting a sense of movement that isn't actually there just because there is just something so viscerally conveyed about this. Like, yeah, you would know exactly how this would feel to hang on this chain. And I think of just maybe like weird, like remnants of gym class rattling around in your brain and you transposing that into this medieval dungeon that K. Rool lives in.
Also, how literally are you going to take this? How many bodies are lining the floor of K. Rool's Keep?
Well, yeah, and it is one of like the few references to just actual life and death consequences. Like, yeah, Diddy and Dixie might just get got here.
Like, we don't see like piles of skulls like we do in the Lost World later, but it's not painting a pretty picture.
Speaking of the Lost World, they actually, God, this is the root of it, no pun intended. Here we go. Lost World. There are rumors of a Lost World located deep beneath Crocodile Isle. It has been said that this is the source of the Kremlings and that there is valuable treasure to be found there, including the elusive true ending of the game. Only the most clever explorers will find this place. And really quick, in the corner there, Cranky is saying, someone sure has a vivid imagination. I've been everywhere and I can tell you that none of these places actually exist. So, God, the amount of intrigue and dread that this Lost World description gave me. So, for starters, the render is of the crocodile core interior, the altar that's built around the Kremlin source, and, you know, like, when I actually got to the Lost World in the game, I was expecting this visual, and it was instead this, like, huge underground cavern with jungles, and then you had the source energy coming out of the big crocodile head, and I didn't realize, like, oh, this is the inside of that. My dumb brain.
It's a weird instance of, like, technically spoiling for you the very last area in the game, but
yeah,
in doing so, preserving the surprise of the stunning visual when you first get to the Lost World of exactly what you're looking at.
Yeah, and it is a stunning visual. Like, for me, I was just thinking this was artistic license for the render and that the Lost World maybe didn't actually look like this. And then you actually get into the crocodile core and you're like, oh no, this is actually a render that's the scene in the game, the background of the final battle. God, I love this render.
And that glowing tube is going to look so much cooler in the game. And a bit more apparent here than in the game itself. We had the debut of this. I would love to know why this kept happening, but it's the beginning of this short-lived trend of the 2 spinning rings in rare games. They appear here, they reappear in Diddy Kong Racing, and then they show up again in Jet Force Gemini.
You know what? They really just, like, I feel like this was a thing in the 90s. The spinning rings that, like, you would occasionally see them in, like, museums, and, like, I don't know what the actual term is, but there would be, like, physical representations of this, and yeah, Rare figured out how to animate it, and boy, they were really gonna use it. But you know, like, seeing this, I thought it would be really, really hard to find the Lost World, because it says only the most clever explorers will find this place. So I thought, like, the true ending of the game would be locked behind something ridiculous, like never losing a life, never getting hit, beating the game within 5 minutes. I don't know. And so, you know, once it became apparent that it was actually just through Club's kiosk, which you would find out as soon as you got 15 Krem coins and spent them, then that worry, that fear was alleviated immediately. But, God, this ominous tone, like, it made it feel like it was far beyond my skills as a player in 1995. I was not the most clever explorer, Cameron.
Yeah, I didn't really have expectations of me finding this either until the kiosk surprised me. And I also, because of the nature of this render being an interior in a world that's mostly exterior, I think I kind of had this expectation of like, oh, this is going to be like a hidden, like, Indiana Jones style, like, temple dungeon that's like dark and challenging. I didn't expect most of it would be out in broad daylight, and you'd have only one new archetype, but one very cool new archetype.
Yeah.
Out in a very hostile jungle.
Yeah. And this also put a little bit of a fear in the back of my brain, kind of incepted it. I didn't realize it was there at first, but it grew over time. I started to wonder if there was a lost world in the original Donkey Kong Country that I just never got to. And I was worried that I had never really beaten that game. And this was a paranoia that actually stayed with me. I would have nightmares about this, Cameron. I was just like almost convinced after a certain point that, of course, there was a lost world in Donkey Kong Country, and I missed it. And that would stay with me until we launched DK Vine in 1999, and I could actually just compare notes with fellow compatriots, Kong patriots, if you will. And it was like, no, there's no lost world in DKC. That's something they invented for DKC too. And it stuck with the series through Donkey Kong Land 3. But yeah, I really just thought, like, even though they didn't broadcast it in DKC, I was like, well, it's here. It's in DKC too. Why wouldn't it be in the first one? I don't know. It also, of course, says that it has been said this is the source of the Kremlins. And that is such an innocuous line in hindsight. But wow, did it inspire years of fan theories. Like the Kremlin source. I mean, the name Kremlin source comes from this sentence. It's derived from this. And so much thought and fan theory crafting and connections and just I'm convinced this is also what really made the Kremlins into like the legendary antagonists that they are. Like, it all stemmed from this hint at a grander mythology and background. And I mean, 30 years later, Bonanza has taken that ball and really just spiked it across the finish line. Like, it really did just say, like, okay, yeah, well, let's extrapolate on that and really just, like, pull out and see what we can do with that and this whole underground world mythology. And here's the Bonandium root.
Yeah, it's so much it does so much with so little to just give you this, plant this idea in your head that, like, oh, the Kremlings have this whole storied history to their civilization that you've never seen, and nobody will ever explore it again because you sunk it.
I mean, yeah, coupled with the temples on Donkey Kong Island in Country and Land having the Kremlin motif, and then of course Kremlantis in Donkey Kong Land, it really was just this escalation of, oh my god, the Kremlins have such an amazing backstory and mythology, and it does so much with so little, but it fed 30 years of madness.
Like, because of stuff like this, you care about them. You have so much more reason to care about them than simply, well, they're the jerks that stole DK's bananas.
Yeah, I've said before that the Kremlins, while enjoyable antagonists in Donkey Kong Country, K. Rool himself is kind of generic. And it really is this game that made them into the Kremlins we all know and love and obsess over to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, it's wild that I didn't feel ripped off, that I learned every single world, including the Lost World, sans the Flying Croc. it's so different to my Bonanza experience where I just went on this whole internet lockdown. I just blocked everything out until I beat the game. Because, like, I would have not have wanted anything in Bonanza to have been spoiled. But this, my favorite game of all time, I knew what was ahead, more or less. And it didn't ruin it. All right. Moving on. Animal Friends. Animal Friends. So this, of course, lists all of the animal buddies sans quacks. Sans the purple parrots of Parachute Panic. But the description says, it seems that Diddy and Dixie will not be alone on their quest. First of all, Rambi and Guard and Squawks return to add their animal abilities to the effort. A handful of new animals also make their debut on Crocodile Isle. All right, do we want to read these? I think some of them are worth reading.
At the very least, I'd like to call attention to Ratley's, because it has another bit of like ammo for fan speculation, I feel.
I completely agree. Let's read Ratley. Go ahead.
Ratley the Rattlesnake, not spelled with an E. Rebelling against the Kremlings who infest the island. Ratley offers his high jumping ability to help the Kongs. He can jump much higher than the Kongs, courtesy of his springy tail.
Yeah.
Rebelling against the Kremlings.
Rebelling against the Kremlings who infest the island. It's Crocodile Isle, Ratley. Like, what do you expect?
So, Ratley is a Crocodile Isle native, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, from this, I extrapolated as a kid that, Squitter, Glimmer, Clapper, they all must be natives of Crocodile Isle as well. And of course, then migrate to Donkey Kong Island once, you sink it.
Yeah. Notably, in the order these are presented, you get the returning DKC animal buddies first.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Ratley are all the new ones. So yeah, you could extrapolate that all of them, like this framing is saying like all of these animal buddies aren't from DK Island.
For sure. And I get into this. I did a whole video about Ratley, part of the DKU Lore Tour series on our YouTube channel, where I actually touch upon why is Ratley so fucking famous that he's referenced by Gruntilda, Mayor Pauline. Like, why? Why is this animal buddy in particular? And I zero in on this line, rebelling against the Kremlings who infest the island, and how Ratley is viewed as some sort of symbol of rising up against oppressors. And yeah, it's wild. Like this instruction manual carried so much of the fandom forward in so many different ways. But it just, you can pick up a line here or there and really make a meal out of it. These are just crumbs, but you can feast for decades off of this. And I think that just speaks to how well it, had that interplay with the game itself. And why instruction manuals are a lost art, why I long for them, because it's not really important in a game like Bonanza because Bonanza has a wealth of dialogue and details and little lore tidbits. But in a game that's a 2D platformer, that context can make all the difference when there's not room to really spell it out in the game.
Right. There's not really a moment where Ratley can pull you aside and give you his backstory. I mean, Yoshi did that in Super Mario World, but wasn't a super detailed speech. Right.
And then, you get into the idea of, can the animal buddies talk? Is this posh Ratley? I say, these awful crocodile men on this island. Oh, if only the rattlesnakes were in charge, we would really be a proper neighbor to you Kongs.
Are there multiple Ratleys? Is this a mass rattlesnake rebellion? Now I'm just thinking of hundreds of snakes flooding K-Roll's Keep, and what a terrifying visual that is.
Did the Kremlings cut off their rattles? Because where's Ratley's rattle? You never see it. You never hear it. I do also want to quickly draw attention to Squawks' description, where it says Squawks' role in Diddy's new adventure is much more important. Rather than just carrying a flashlight, he can now lift both Diddy and Dixie for high-flying adventures. Squawks can also spit eggs at enemies if you press the Y button, just in case. There's always that debate, what is Squawks actually spitting in DKC 2 onward? Eggs. It doesn't make any sense. Don't worry about it. He's pilfering the eggs from other nests. He's awful. He's like a cuckoo. But it's funny that they're like, yeah, Squawks isn't this bum holding this flashlight. And then 3 descriptions over, here's Glimmer. Here's your new friend, Glimmer. Glimmer the anglerfish, where it does say Glimmer lives in one of the sunken Kremlin galleons near Krem Key. He'll offer his light to show the Kongs the way through one of the darkened underwater levels. So yeah, I mean, Glimmer also lives on Crocodile Isle at the very least. But
it's a fun thing that they were able to do with Donkey Kong Country 2. Again, probably owing to these games being built out of 3D assets of, yeah, we can repurpose Squawks with an entirely different function where he's a much more active character in this sequel.
Well, just the idea of promoting this character into this bigger role. I mean, I know that's all DKC2 is about. It's the promotion of Diddy Kong to full-fledged star status, but even something like Squawks, who is just in one level in the original Donkey Kong Country, and say, okay, he's much more important now. He's grown into this more prominent role. And I mean, even to this day, where the animal buddies are de-emphasized, which 2 animal buddies are always around? Rambi and Squawks.
Mm-hmm.
But on that topic, you get Cranky's classic bit of dialogue, his commentary on the corner here. A more tragic-looking bunch of useless no-hopers, first usage of no-hopers there, you'll never see. I liked Espresso and Winky. Where have they gone?
This is such funny contrarianism for Cranky. He only likes Espresso and Winky because they're gone.
Because they're gone, but this does create what's actually a running subplot throughout the instruction manuals and eventually, I guess, the GBA remakes.
It's a weird touch where, like, this is a line rooted in writing Cranky to be a shithead, but it's kind of grown into this weirdly humanizing element of him, of his character, where he is the caretaker of any animal buddy who is sitting on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like, I think this is kind of a throwaway line in the instruction manual. And the fact that they would even reference 2 characters who ostensibly are not in this game at all, it's so un-Nintendo-like, or I should say un-Nintendo-like, in the eras of Nintendo that would immediately follow this era and has kind of subsided now in the Bonanza era. But yeah, it's like you're drawing attention to these 2 characters who are not in this game at all. That's pretty bold. And it does kind of plant the seeds, as you said, for Cranky to be the caretaker, which would, I mean, we'll talk about it on just the next page, but there is like an element of Winky sort of being in this game. But the GBA remake of this game would really then flesh out Espresso and Winky are being cared for by Cranky in a certain sense. And that would kind of balloon into its own thing of Cranky just being this caretaker to the animal buddies in the retro games. So, or at least in Returns. So yeah, I mean, I really think a lot about this line in particular. Well, that brings us to the Kong helpers, or as it's called in the instruction manual, special areas. All right. Even though Diddy and Dixie are supposed to be going on this quest on their own, the rest of the Kong clan just couldn't stay out of it, especially since there is money to be made helping beginning adventurers. You'll find all the Kong family members in the prime business locations throughout Crocodile Isle. Not all. I mean, Candy is not included, nor is she referenced at all in DKC2, the original version, that is. Her whereabouts are eventually explained again in the GBA remake.
Which, I can't remember if this was said officially somewhere, and that's where I remember it, but I feel like I remember the explanation for why Candy isn't in this game being, well, the optics of having, like, the like flirty sex appeal joke Kong being in the same game where you have like two characters in a steady relationship and her main beau is missing would be weird.
Yeah. I mean, it was weird in DK64 when she came back and she was making blowjob jokes to children. So, I mean, good call there. Spot on. I like Candy. I think Candy is underutilized and underbaked, but I also think the addition of Wrinkly was a good one.
And I think the GBA version making her into a silent cameo as like Swanky's Vanna White was a cute touch that kind of helped bring her back in.
Yeah. It is wild though, like 1 year later, like just how more thoughtful they were as far as actual like female representation, where you have Dixie, who is such a powerhouse in that regard, but then you also introduce what is so atypical of this era or any era. Yeah, we're going to introduce another woman into the mix. She's an elderly grandma, no sex appeal whatsoever, you know, no, like Candy was played as a joke, but she was still a big breasted blonde, you know, which was very much everywhere in the 90s. And then here comes Wrinkly Kong, an old grandma, and she's going to become a mainstay. Get used to her.
Just don't get used to her looking like this.
No, don't grow too attached to her flesh. So anyway, I mean, I think these are pretty perfunctory, but it's worth reading them. They're quick. We'll go quick. Funky's Flights is the first one listed. It's Funky Flights 2 technically, but whatever. Funky's Flights are the only way to fly. If you've already been to an area, you can use Funky's Flights to revisit that place. This time, though, you'll have to pay your fare in banana coins to get a ticket. Do you want to read Swanky's Bonus Bonanza?
Step right up. You're the next contestant on Swanky's Bonus Bonanza. Play this game to win valuable bonus items. It's a gamble since you have to pay banana coins to play. I
think we just got a little bit of confirmation there that Dan Owsen had the very traditional U.S. experience of being homesick and watching The Price is Right.
Yeah. It's just that, like, the cadence immediately comes to you of what this is.
What was the announcer on The Price is Right during the Bob Barker era? Rod Roddy. That. Yeah, I can hear that in his voice, and it takes me back to sick days, snow days, summer days, where The Price is Right is on 11 a.m. Eastern in the background. Yeah. There's also just so little context for who Swanky is, which I just, here's a new Kong. He's a game show host. Whatever.
He wasn't even on the beach before.
No. Wrinkly's Kong College. Of course, this manual will tell you almost everything you need to know, but since most people don't read the manual, you can get a lot of basic game education in Wrinkly Kong's schoolroom. Since this is a private school, you have to pay tuition in banana coins. Even if you don't need the information, you'll want to go to school because nice Mrs. Wrinkly can save your game. Also, I love that. It's like lamenting that, kids aren't reading this. Why am I doing this?
It kind of felt a little bit special reading this because it's like, oh, I saved us so many banana coins by reading this manual.
I just thought, wow, I'm better than all the other kids out there. Oh, good look at me doing my homework. But yeah, it's a fun line. I like the little joke about it being a private school and that's why you have to pay. It's just that little extra bit of justification that I always appreciate. Like in the introduction, it's like, yeah, the Kongs are greedy. They want money, 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 money. But here there's a little bit of justification for it. And I always like when it just even goes a quarter of the way towards explaining why something is the way it is. I mean, that's been a hallmark of Rare games, but also because of that, the Donkey Kong series. And I think Bonanza does a good job of having all these little justifications for why there are things you have to do, why that is the way it is. And that's part of the fun, over explaining things rather than just saying it's a video game, shut up.
Right, which is also extra fun because Donkey Kong Country rides the line of doing both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It will constantly call attention to the fact that it's a game, but generally not to write itself out of a corner, but to indulge in fun.
It is interesting that Wrinkly isn't referenced as Cranky's wife here. Not that it matters, not that she needs to be defined by her relationship to a man, but you know, it is kind of this important caveat in this case, because if she's Cranky's wife, then ergo she's Donkey Kong's mom/grandmom. But again, you find that out pretty quickly.
It also colors Cranky's comment on this page a little differently. I'm getting ahead of ourselves, but let's read it.
Yeah, let's go and read Cranky's Monkey Museum and then read Cranky's little comment.
Okay. Even old Cranky Kong is getting in on the entrepreneurial spirit. He's opened a monkey museum where inquisitive monkeys can go to learn about the lore of Crocodile Isle. Prepare to pay to get the best hints. Cranky Kong cares about lore, and so should you.
Yeah, in the show notes here, I included the damn Kotaku article that I've had in the show notes since May or since June, where it says I said learn about the lore of Crocodile Isle, but and then I included the image that says Nintendo doesn't worry about Donkey Kong lore, and neither should you. It's like no, it's here in 1995. What are we doing?
At this point, since it pertains to both the Monkey Museum and Wrinkly's Kong College, I'll point out, so on this splash page with all the characters are, for everyone but Funky, renders of the environments where you encounter them.
Yeah.
And I can tell both Wrinkly and Cranky are using earlier iterations because, Cranky, instead of Winky, has On Guard in an aquarium behind him.
Yep.
Or possibly mounted, but it looks like an aquarium. It's just got like a nameplate on it that makes me wonder.
Right.
But I think you were correct in assuming that they probably thought it better to swap it out with an animal buddy who's not actually in the game otherwise.
Yeah, we pointed it out before, but like the fact that it was originally In Guard in there, like I don't think In Guard was ever really off the table as far as animal buddies go. At the very least, you know, late enough in the game where they were making renders for all this stuff. Like I don't think In Guard was ever like not going to be in it to that point, but you know, it does kind of suggest that maybe the original intention was that it was just a statue. It was just a display piece and not the actual real animal buddy. But yeah, putting a left out animal buddy on display, especially since even though it's very hard to decipher in the game, there is an espresso token next to the terrarium that Winky is in, really helps like give a little shine to those two characters who have been left out. And of course, the GBA remake would eventually confirm Winky was actually in there. And hey, Espresso was in there as well. So it's fine.
Yeah. And the difference in the Kong College background I can see is so there are sums drawn on the chalkboard.
Yeah.
Behind Wrinkly. And in this manual, they're labeled sums, and there's 3 equations. All of them are like very basic, like second grade math. Like 2 times 4 is 8. 5 times
Well, that's wrong.
yeah, 5 times 1 is actually wrong, equals 6.
Yeah.
That should be 5 plus 1. 3 times 3 equals 9. So, yeah, only one of those is incorrect.
Right. So the joke doesn't land as much because
you have to really pay attention to catch it.
Mm-hmm.
In the game itself, it's labeled exam. There are 3 equations. 9 divided by 3 equals 6. 8 times 1 equals 9. And 4 plus 2 equals 5. All 3 are completely wrong.
And they're so, like, egregiously wrong, too, that, yeah, like, this version, it makes it look like Rare just fucked up. And in the final version, it's clear that that is the joke, that the Kremlins are just bad at math.
I think one of Wrinkly's, like, random lines is, like, even look at those, like, shameful sums on the board.
It's like, you're the teacher,
like,
Wrinkly. Like, what? You gotta speak their language. You gotta, like, sit backwards in a chair and rap.
I think it's this nice little moment of seeing that Rare caught that they had extra room to make another joke and put it in.
Right.
And it again is reinforcing kind of the recurring joke through all of Wrinkly's lines that, like, she is earnestly trying to educate the Kremlings and they are not meeting her at her level. Like, she mentions she caught a Kremling sharpening his sword in class. K. Rule still hasn't turned in his homework.
Right, which, if you're trying to get the king of the island to do schoolwork, that's not gonna really fly, is it?
If he's paying for it, though.
I mean, he wanted to better himself, but he's not really committing. So Cranky, rather than including the full-bodied render of Cranky, they have another pop-up starburst insert over the Monkey Museum render, and that one says, "Visit me first and give me all your coins. I'm far more useful than these other sad-looking bums." And he's positioned right beneath his wife.
If the render were flipped, he'd be pointing his cane at her.
Yeah.
That Cranky calling his wife a sad-looking bum.
Well, in the game itself, he's much harsher. He calls her his old, ugly wife.
He's so mean in this one.
He is, like, this is the worst Cranky has ever written. When I say worst, I mean just as far as being, like, out and out hostile towards everyone. He's far more chill in DKC 3, and he has his moments in DK 64, but I don't think he's ever written as just a flagrant bastard as he is in DKC 2. That he's just at his most crotchety.
Yeah, I feel like the closest he comes after this in DK64 is telling Chunky he'll want to use the ability that makes him disappear as often as possible.
Right. And then finally we have Clubba's Kiosk. Clubba is included here. Why don't you read that one?
The towering Clubba demands payment of anyone who would cross his bridge, and he'll only accept Krem coins. What's on the other side? Why would anyone want to go there? You'll have to find out for yourself. And it's worth it.
I don't know why I wasn't putting it together that, yeah, this was just the Lost World. But I didn't realize that until Crocodile Cauldron.
No, I just didn't think anything of it, especially because when you visit Clubba and don't have enough money, the game lets you blow it off as a joke.
I felt like the grandeur of this Lost World didn't necessarily equate to Clubba, because why could you just pay your way in? Why could you just, like, give these coins, and then you just get access to such a mythical place that only the most clever explorers would ever find. I didn't think it was gonna be that easy, but not that it was easy to get all the
It turns
crown
out
coins.
it's just a tourist trap to get you to go there.
Yeah, a tourist trap that can ultimately bring about the destruction and near eradication of the Kremlin people.
A literal tourist trap. I've seen the skulls on the spikes.
And then that brings us to the Kremlins Ahoy and More Baddies section, where they just list all the various Kremlin crew members. And I like that a little description.
These 2 pages, I think, were my most rested on in this manual.
Because, yeah, you just get a plethora of enemy renders. And the description I also love, you're on enemy ground now, so you'll be facing craftier, crueler Kremlins than ever before. They don't wear that pirate regalia for nothing. And, couple things. Club is listed again here. And it says his club should give you a clue about what might happen if you try to cross his bridge without paying the toll. And yeah, if you choose fight him, he just bashes you.
This page is notable for a couple things I'd like to call out, but a big thing is that this and this second page here with Cruncha and Cannon explicitly calls out that Cannon is a redressed Clump from the first game.
Yep. It looks like Clump can shoot. That's the entirety of the description.
Yep. That's all you get. And Cruncha doesn't say that he's Crusha, but...
I don't know why people hedge their bets about this. It's, I think, pretty clear because of Cannon.
The proportions are a little bit different, but they also are on K. Rool.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the render, it's a Crusha dressed as a pirate. And then you can also extrapolate, well, Clomp is just a critter with a peg leg, and so is Gaboing, except those are pogo sticks.
At the very least, they are doing I think putting these renders next to each other is making it clear, like, oh, these are your 2 big guys again.
Yeah. I also like the description for Zinger, where it says, the bugs are back!
I appreciate the description for Neek, named for the annoying little squeaking sounds they make. These bilge rats infest every corner of Crocodile Isle. Check out their cool rendered fur. just a flex on how good everything looks.
Yeah. Also, just confirmation that they are ship rats, and like that is a little detail that I think sets them apart from the later sneaks. Is that, or even like in Bonanza, we just get like actual rats on Donkey Kong Island.
Very rare to see the use of bilge rat that's not a euphemism.
Yeah. It is also funny coming back to all of this after years of playing Sea of Thieves, because you just have so many phrases relating to pirates ingrained in your brain because of that game, and then to see it, that it's not referring to a specific faction here.
Also going to call out Clampon here for another explicit connection.
Yeah.
He's Claptrap's bigger brother, and he has a monstrous appetite for monkeys.
Yeah.
That's a really clever way of reframing that, like, this is, for all intents and purposes, in gameplay, they made Claptrap bigger.
Yep.
And more imposing.
And,
and harder to jump over.
Dustin said it on last episode. I agreed with him, and I'll say it again. I kind of prefer Clampons to Claptraps.
They look so cool. I still lament, in the very, very first screenshots we ever got of the game that would eventually become Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, back when it was a GameCube game, the critters in that game had decorated their jet barrels with the orange and blue camouflage pattern of a clamp-on. And I thought that was so cool. And by the time the game came out, they had dropped it, and I so wish they had kept it.
Yeah, I mean, God, Payon was our salvation for so many years because they would do stuff like that. And I mean, it was the first instance of it felt like fans who liked the same stuff we liked actually making games. And I mean, the joke was there was a Payon spy hiding out on the forums because everything was just so spot on. But, yeah, I say bring back Clamp On, damn it. They're great.
Yeah.
So we want to point out on the following page under more baddies, there are a couple things here. There's two things specifically I want to point out, besides Cranky's little bit of commentary. The classic description for Cutlass that is quoted so much on the Kongversation. Cutlass mail-ordered his razor-sharp swords from a TV offer. They turned out to be a little bigger than they looked on his small screen. Excellent! Which, okay, so that is such a, 90s joke, but also it is very much rooted in a very specific era that really no longer exists. I know there are still shopping channels, but I don't think anyone under the age of 65 will really relate to it.
No, you would see these as seen on TV mail-in offers constantly on TV in the 90s. And on every channel, I'd say even on show, programming aimed at kids, especially during programming aimed at kids.
Yeah. And in this case, there would be knives, kitchen knife commercials, not aimed at kids, clearly, but you would still see them, again, if you were watching TV or the TV was on in the background, something like The Price is Right. It might, you might have these mail order offers, call 1-800, whatever. And
are you tired of these dull, everyday knives that can't even slice through a monkey's tail?
And then the exasperated actor playing a housewife is just trying to slice a monkey in her kitchen, and she just throws up her hands in a very exasperated, overacting way. Yeah. It's a different era then. Now we have Temu ads. But yeah, it's just such a fun touch, and it adds so much context for the Cutlasses and what they're about, and it's so funny, and there's such a great character, and I think so much of it is just carried from this line. Of course, the delightful animations in the game as well, and how they can't handle their swords, and they just get them caught in the ground, which is the whole point of the character. But to have this little bit of extra detail goes a long way.
Again, I hadn't played the game at this point, and I was still even just dipping my toes into the nature of video games, what they are, how they treated their characters. A lot of the time you can read K. Rool's army as species. Every Kremling type you encounter is a species. There are clumps, there are critters, there are clobbers. This is such a hyper-specific individual story that I think it kind of led me to view all of the Kremlings in this game as, well, okay, these are individual characters, and anytime I see more than one of them on screen, it is just a visual concession to make it work as a game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious how you parsed this very fun, ridiculous explanation yourself at the time and now.
So for me, I viewed it very much as all the Cutlasses have this experience. I was just yeah, you know what? They were all told by K. Rool, hey, you need to get knives, you need to get swords. And they were like all watching late night TV or something.
Do you think one Cutlass saw the commercial late at night at like like one of those hour-long infomercials that airs at like 2 a.m?
Yeah.
And phoned up all his friends in the middle of the night like, dude, stop what you're doing, turn on Channel 9. You gotta see this.
Maybe they were having like a slumber party. It was one of their birthdays. And so they were all just, up late at night, like past their bedtime. And they were watching. I think Cutlass is also the first Kremling that's kind of coded as a kid. Of course, we have also in this game Clank, who are just Cutlasses riding the roller coaster. But again, I think they are supposed to be Kremling children, before Kip and Cass.
I wasn't sure whether to read them as children or just very short, because at least in the original game, they do have the same deep voice as all the other Kremlings.
Yeah, but I also just think Rare realized what a winning sound effect that was.
Which, totally fair.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, they may be on the verge of pubescence, but yeah, I do like the idea. Like, of course, I don't view them all as just a singular character. I know the cartoon kind of planted that idea in a lot of people's heads. Well, Clump and Crusha are individual characters. And for me, coming at all this before the cartoon, I just view them as either different species of Kremlings or different designations, like ranks. You are a critter. You are part of the critter class of Kremling crew member. And yeah, I just view Cutlass as that. And I view this very personal anecdote as somehow applied to all of them. Somehow that made it even funnier in my brain.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to call attention to on this page, and it's not really much to do with the manual, but just it stuck out to me as a child, so I gotta point it out. Cackle and Cloak on this page.
Mm-hmm.
These ghostly Kremling spirits haunt many locations on Crocodile Isle. Well, one for Cackle, but this render of Cackle, I had never seen anything like this high contrast, creepy skeleton, 3D skeleton man when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And this render scared the shit out of me.
It goes surprisingly hardcore for a game of this ilk. And yeah, I mean, even to this day, I'm like, wow, like compare this to like one of the dry enemies in a Mario game, like Dry Bones, and you're just like, wow, they were just like
I was actively worried, like, oh, when I get to the part of the game these guys are in, am I gonna be able to get past it?
Yeah.
And then of course I did. But it's funny to me that I got so hung up on Cackle being creepy when I was a wee little kid, because one, I just think they're hardcore as hell now. They look great. They look awesome. But also, this game began a long storied life of following the work of Rare, who would then proceed to spend the next 30 years feeding me nonstop goofy, lovable skelly men who were who fell to pieces, were goofballs, had little silly fun turns of phrases like calling everyone Cookie, or calling their friend Cookie.
Yeah.
And even going into Sea of Thieves, where they are in universe, like the circumstances that turn you into a skelly are horrifying. When you actually encounter them, though, they are all like goofy dolts at worst, and just the hammiest of hams at their absolute worst.
Right. Yeah, I think that, like, this Cackle, Spinal predated Cackle by a year in the arcades, by a couple months.
Spinal
on the
also
Super
a very
Nintendo.
goofy skeleton.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's funny because I feel like the template is really Spinal from Killer Instinct, but Cackle, like, more so than Spinal, ties it to piracy. So this is the first. I know, like, retroactively, Spinal was tied to piracy, but like, I think this is our first instance of Skellies in a DKU game at the very least. And, yeah, boy, the legacy that would come from this. Like, I know this is a ghost skeleton, but that also exists in Sea of Thieves. So, you know.
Yeah.
The only other thing I really want to point out on this page is that Captain K. Rool is listed. It says the leader of the pack is back, and this time he's packing a blunderbuss. Ouch. I didn't know what a blunderbuss was at the time.
Neither did I. This game taught me, yeah. It's a big gun you stuff things into.
I would just like to point out that they also silhouette the render of Captain K. Rool, I think, for parody with the original Donkey Kong Country Instruction Manual. The only problem with that, though, is that we saw what Captain K. Rool looks like on the very first page, or rather the second page, the table of contents.
Yeah. I'll also call attention to this because the nature of the silhouette is bringing it to my attention, and it's an element of Captain K. Rool's design that once I saw it, I can never unsee it. As much as I love the pirate look for K. Rool, it just fits him to a T. Have you ever noticed how skinny his arms are in his captain guise, and how humongous his hands are?
I've never noticed that, and now I feel like this will always be what I look at, and you've ruined it for me.
Then my job is done.
But again, it's not like K. Rool's proportions ever stay consistent from game to game. So, it's okay. It's alright. Doesn't matter.
The jacket is very slimming. Just not in the places you want it to be slimming.
In DKC 3, he has a forehead for no reason. In DK64, he had wiggling toes that weren't there before. It's fine. It's fine. You know, he uses prosthetics when needed. And then it brings us to Cranky's hints at the back of the book, right before the notes page. Now,
we missed a Cranky quote on the baddies page.
Oh shit! I'm so sorry. I was so eager to get to the big Cranky bit that I skipped the little Cranky bit. Cranky says, "How many? I reckon they've just put fancy pictures in here to make it look good. There are only 3 of these in the game at most." So, I wanted to ask you, because Cranky pulls this shtick a lot here. Where he says, these don't exist. I've been through this game. I've only seen 3 of these. I haven't seen any of these areas. Are Cranky's claims just him trying to gaslight the reader into not playing the game? Or is he actually really just shit at Donkey Kong Country 2?
Well, in Donkey Kong Country 1, he only got through the first world.
Yeah, and that made me...
He says he did the whole thing in less than an hour, but... Yeah.
Brings that to a new perspective when you consider he only has tips for that first world. Now, he did, according to this, hide all the hero coins, so I'm going to extend the benefit of the doubt here and say he's trying to gaslight the reader into not playing the game because he's a dick. But, yeah. He just doesn't want the game to feel as impressive as it ultimately winds up being.
He's not... I don't think he genuinely only thinks there's 3.
Right. But yes, Cranky's hints on the next page, next to the notes section, which is reduced, and there's not a joke in there about the notes section being irrelevant and nobody ever uses it.
In this era, the notes page was more relevant if you had a game with passwords.
Yeah.
Which this isn't.
It really did feel superfluous and just there because of tradition at this point. But that's why like my favorite thing in the original Donkey Kong Country manual was Cranky saying, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah, I'm not writing in this manual.
So Cranky's hints. Okay, so he says, "See, I knew you'd have to come crying to old Cranky, begging him to share his vast gameplay knowledge with you. Did you think that just because you tortured yourself by reading this boring manual, I would actually reward you with some free hints? Pshaw! You could pay for my hints in the Monkey Museum like everyone else. I did hear that rag Nintendo Power will be printing up some sort of strategy guide for this game, though. I don't know why, since the game doesn't require any strategy that I could find. Anyway, if you really want to waste your money on it, you might actually learn some of the secrets. But don't expect to find me in their guide. This is the last pitiful cameo appearance I'm going to make." It's kind of true for a while, because he didn't do this in Donkey Kong Country 3's manual.
His last quote here is another one that is just stuck in my head forever.
Oh yeah. So
the one he goes out on.
he has these two in like actual like text boxes, but then on the bottom, he has like his full-bodied render is inserted on this page. Like he has commentary on his own commentary page.
It's almost like showing the full render is the sign of like he's walking off stage. He's done with this shit.
Why don't you read this one?
Secret's my beard. The only thing that's secret is the gameplay, because I can't find any.
I just love that it's not enough for him to have an entire page where he can talk shit. He has to then have his pop-up commentary on the own Cranky page to get another parting shot in. He's like, you know what? In actuality, fuck this to hell. Cranky out, drop the mic. That's not actually his last appearance. He has one more appearance, believe it or not. But yeah, it's Secret's my
on a
beard.
page that pretty much no kid is going to read otherwise.
Right. So when you turn the page, it is the both disclaimer against copying the game, which of course in the original manual, in the first manual, he says, "Copy? Who'd want to copy this game?" But here, he actually comments on the warranty section on the adjacent page. So, I don't know how they got away with this. This is definitely the sort of thing the lawyers would advise against today.
Yeah.
So,
Probably should have advised against it back then.
yeah.
It's fun, but this feels very dangerous.
This does feel very dangerous, and this is me sounding like, again, like an old-timer saying, well, back then, things weren't nearly as litigious, and no, they were. Like, somebody would try to make a meal out of this, even back then, and the fact that nobody did.
At the very least, I feel like legal oversight would caution against printing this.
Yes, but it was the 90s. It was the mid-90s. Everything was about attitude and being extreme and sticking your thumb in the eye of authority. So Cranky...
Advertising products like they would kill you.
Yeah, absolutely. We loved it. We were all for it. That's how you sold product back then. And Cranky says, "I'll wager this shoddy game won't even last 3 days. So you'll be needing this warranty, I can assure you." And now it's lasted 30 years, Cranky. Sorry to say. For you. Not me. It's my favorite game of all time.
And this is a 3-month limited warranty, so sorry if anything's happened to your DKC2 cartridges recently.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, you have Nintendo's Switch and Switch 2 infrastructure, Nintendo Switch Online, to, play Donkey Kong Country 2 if your cartridge doesn't work anymore. Cameron, 3.5 hours talking about the Donkey Kong Country 2 instruction manual. Surprisingly brief for us, I would say.
Yeah.
We do have a call. Our audience wasn't nearly as chatty about this manual as we were. So let's go ahead and play this call. As always, you can call the DK Vine hotline at 1-202-630-VINE, 8463. If you can't call the hotline, or if you just have an aversion towards hearing your own voice, you can always send me a message on Blue Sky. We're at DK Vine, and I'll read your message on the air. Let's go ahead and play this call. We'll talk about it, and then we'll say our final thoughts about a 30-year-old instruction manual that was barely over 30 pages long.
Hello, Cameron. Hello, Hyle. This is Cronax calling in for the Donkey Kong Country 2 game manual episode, and sort of in honor of it, I've read through it completely for the very first time. I just want to share two of my main takeaways here. First of all, in the very first bit of Trouble in Paradise, they say Donkey Kong gulped down the last of his banana milkshake. And that is more revealing than you might think, because Donkey Kong Island is, I think it's fair to say, it's a low-tech society. Obviously there's some innovation happening with barrel-based technology, but they're not at the stage where they have mass refrigeration and industrial manufacturing and things like that. Which means that getting this ice cream tree would not be very simple. It's something that would require a lot of man-hour and something that only the very richest could afford, which only confirms the fact that Donkey Kong is not only a Nepo baby, he's essentially landed nobility. So if you ever thought he was a relatable hero of the Nazis, you better think again. But secondly, and maybe a little bit less farcically, I was kind of surprised that Cranky Kong focuses so much on gaslighting. I knew that he would say that aspects of the game suck, the protagonists suck, they're not good heroes, the game is shoddy, and it will probably shut down within 3 days, which is why you need the warranty. But he also just tells you this stuff isn't real. They go through all the worlds, and then he says something this guy has a great imagination because these are just not real. These places don't exist. And he also says the enemies aren't real. It's there's at most 3 enemies in this game. The rest of these are just made up. And I feel they might have leaned away from that, because I never thought that Cranky Kong goes so far as to make me doubt my own mind. Maybe it was just he's the king that started off this wicked nobility who's whipping the animals to make banana milkshakes. So maybe I should have been less naive. I should have been more cynical from the start. Thank you for taking the call.
Well, thank you for the call and your perspectives on this matter. I will say, I don't think the Kongs are as lo-fi as you're saying. I think they do have enough technology to make frozen treats, and maybe they're not even making it, because remember, one of their closest neighbors, the island of Juicy Jungle, possibly populated by the Oinks, Professor Chops people, and what are they known for? Delicious juice products, but also ice lollies. So I could see them having a range of banana milkshakes or other milkshakes, and they're just brought over the short sea distance to Donkey Kong Island.
At the very least, I don't think the financial overhead of being able to make a banana milkshake is more staggering than building a jumbo jet out of a barrel.
Right. Yeah. Or having banana ports a couple years later. So yeah, I mean, your point taken, and Donkey Kong is a bit of a Nepo baby. That is true. However, he wasn't just handed everything, and eventually he had to prove his worth in the Jungle Jam tournament, King of Swing. So it's not like the Nepo babies we're dealing with today, where they're just gifted their careers and influence.
He tried to lounge around and do nothing, and look what happened.
That's right. And yeah, we've touched upon is Cranky gaslighting or not, and I think he is. I think you're in agreement with us there. I think Cranky is just somebody who did not want this new direction of the Donkey Kong series to take hold. And this was him raging against the light and the just almost nuclear glow of Donkey Kong Country and how successful it was.
Part of him, I think, wants these adventures to fail so he can rub it in Diddy and Donkey's faces.
He wants to rub it in, but he also wants the series to revert to girders and him throwing barrels at Mario. So I think, like, ultimately he had to come to terms with this is what Donkey Kong is going forward. And even if we do return to girders, I'm not going to be in those games. So yeah, this is Cranky still thinking he can turn things around and get things back to what he wants it to be. And then they let him throw softballs a year later, and he was kind of contented with that. So, all right. Well, final thoughts, Cameron. So, are you in agreement with me? Is this our favorite instruction manual of all time?
I certainly think it's mine, and like, I have to acknowledge the bias of, well, it is also one of the first video game instruction manuals I ever read. But, geez, what a high bar. It's very thoughtfully designed. It's very colorful. It's full of artwork that is, to this day, very obscure, but also paints a wonderful picture of the game you're about to play without being literally just screenshot after screenshot. It's so characterful. It's just brilliant to have something that is so fun and so well put together that is also constantly ripping itself apart for being allegedly terrible.
Yes. I think this is my favorite of all time. Like I said, it's neck and necky with Donkey Kong 64's manual, and it just depends on how I'm feeling on any given day. I think this one will always mean more to me, and there's a lot more as far as like visual diversity to look at through this manual. But the thing about Donkey Kong 64's is Cranky is also a brilliant bastard there as well. And I think, like, putting that into perspective, is all I look for in my entertainment old, senile, embittered men who don't know what they're talking about berating me constantly? Because if it is, it's no wonder I'm so up on politics.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.